Chapter 43-24. Impossible? Dragon Master Xiao, what are you thinking? Ao Hong rejected without hesitation. How can I give you the treasury of my West Sea Dragon Palace? No, no. Xiao Hua stretched out a finger and shook it slightly. This Xiao will not ask for the entire treasury of your West Sea Dragon Palace. This Xiao only wants 50%, 20%. Ao Hong immediately bargained, just like an ante buying cabbage in the market of the mortal realm. This Xiao is a man of his word. If I say 50%, then 50%. Xiao Hua said resolutely, if I want to bargain with you, then I won't ask for 50%, 30%. Ao Hong clenched his teeth and said, Dragon Master Xiao, you don't even know what 30% of my West Sea Dragon Palace's treasury means. TCH. Xiao Hua snorted disdainfully, proudly pointing at the dragons outside the restriction and said, these dragons and their descendants were all raised by this Xiao. Do you think this old man doesn't know the situation of the West Sea Dragon Palace's treasury? Besides, only with the West Sea Dragon Emperor can you control the West Sea Dragon King. Then the treasury of the West Sea Dragon Palace will be full sooner or later. If you don't have the West Sea Dragon Emperor. At this point, Xiao Hua didn't need to say anything more. Ao Hong knew how to choose. All right. Ao Hong narrowed his eyes, pondered for a moment, and said, this king agrees to take out 50% of the treasury to exchange for the Dragon Emperor. However, if Dragon Master can tell me the news of the West Sea Fire Dragon Soul, this king is willing to take out another 20%. Xiao Hua smiled, and his eyes narrowed like a fox's. He also transmitted his voice, there's no need for you to take out 20% of the treasure vault as an exchange. After this Xiao obtains 50%, this Xiao will naturally tell you the information this Xiao knows. This news, just treat it as a gift. Really? Ao Hong's heart moved, and he asked with some disbelief. Of course, this Xiao has always been a man of his word. Xiao Hua patted his chest and answered proudly. All right. Ao Hong nodded solemnly and said, in that case, this king will return to the West Sea Dragon Palace, don't be in such a hurry. Xiao Hua smiled and said, this Xiao will go with you. Now that you are heavily injured, if something were to happen, this Xiao's treasures would disappear. How could that be possible? Longsure Xiao. Seeing that Xiao Hua was about to leave, Ao Qian hurriedly asked, this king's 4 seas pearl. Xiao Hua rolled his eyes and said snappily, of course you can return it to the East Sea Dragon Palace, but, you have to use 30% of the East Sea Dragon Palace's treasury in exchange. You. Ao Qian didn't say anything. Ao Go stretched out his dragon claw, trembling with anger, and said, the 4 seas pearl belongs to the 4 seas. If you take it, so be it. Now, I'll give you face and trade with you. Do you all have the qualifications to trade? Xiao Hua did not wait for Ao Go to finish speaking and coldly said, Ao Go, ask yourself honestly, how did you deal with this Xiao in the beginning? Don't think that I don't know what you're planning. The reason why I'm standing here talking to you and making some deals with you is also because I'm giving face to Dragon Island, and because I'm a Dragon Master. I'm also giving face to Great Elder Aojia's painstaking efforts. If it weren't for this Xiao wouldn't be bothered to talk to you all. Isn't it just killing dragons? It's not like this Xiao hasn't killed dragons before. It's not like you all haven't seen the corpses of dragons that died at my hands. Back then, this Xiao was only a 4th grade essence energy cultivator and dared to set up a blood steel in the bronze pillar state. Today, in the 4 seas. Is there anyone who can stop this Xiao from killing? Speaking up to here, Xiao Hua's eyes were like lightning as he looked at Ao Qian, Ao Hong, Ao Concrete, and Ao Go. Although the 4 dragon kings didn't fear Xiao Hua's gaze, they didn't dare to look him in the eye for even a moment. Don't blame this Xiao for speaking so harshly. It's you all who are too disgusting. Xiaohua said again, perhaps you all have been sitting on the dragon throne for too long and your schemes are deeper than the South Sea. But you all must remember, the wrath of the Son of Heaven will cause millions of corpses to float and blood to flow for thousands of miles. The wrath of commoners will cause blood to flow for 5 steps and mourn for the world. In this world, there is no throne for a long time, only a long benevolence. After speaking, Xiaohua opened his mouth and a heart-shaped sword-like soared into the sky. It streaked across the sky and easily broke the restriction set up by Ao Qian. Outside the restriction, Jiang Hong, Lu Yi, and the others controlled the thunderboat. They were on high alert. Although the entire South Sea Dragon Palace had been split in half by Xiaohua, there were still millions of Sea Clan members. The Dragon Clan led by Jiang Hong and the Dragon Clan descendants led by Lu Yi were still at a disadvantage in terms of numbers. Seeing Xiaohua appear, Jiang Hong and the other dragons were overjoyed. Lu Yi transmitted his voice, Master, did the negotiations break down? Are we going to fight? Fight your head. Xiaohua glared at him and scolded, these dragon descendants and sea race members might become your wife's subordinates in the future. Are you willing to kill them? Master, what do you mean? Lu Yi was really confused because after the restriction was set up, the 4 dragon kings of the 4 seas appeared safe and sound. Their expressions and majesty were the same as before. Nothing. Xiaohua laughed and said, your copper coin of treasurefall is quite useful. I'll borrow it first. I'll give you the spirit-binding shackles refined by your martial uncle Lei Ting. Yes, Master. Lu Yi was overjoyed. Actually, he had no use for the copper coin of treasurefall. He had heard Xiaohua talk about the spirit-binding shackles, which were refined from the antennae of the bee he killed on Tongtian Peak that day. When the Thunderclap Immortal was refining this item, Lu Yi had seen it before and had also drooled over this spirit-binding shackles. However, he had never thought that Xiaohua would bestow this item to him. Order all the disciples to leave the South Sea Dragon Palace and have Jiang Hong take them to Heavenly Abode River. Xiaohua swept his gaze and ordered, tell your wife that I found a dragon weapon for her. Don't be so petty in the future. Yes, Master. Lu Yi's face turned red. He understood that Xiaohua could have said these words directly to Jiang Hong. The reason why Xiaohua asked him to pass the message was to tell him that Lu Yi should be the one in charge of the Lu family. He couldn't be too soft. After Xiaohua handed the spirit-binding shackles and 4 Seas Pearl to Lu Yi, he watched as Lu Yi issued orders. The Heavenly Abode River's dragon race and Lu family's descendants formed groups and left the South Sea Dragon Palace in batches. When Jiang Hong heard Xiaohua's orders, her expression became complicated. When Xiaohua asked her that day, she had clearly said that she had married into the Lu family and was a Fortune Gate's disciple. She wouldn't ask about the Heavenly Abode River's dragon race. Then again, Jiang Hong was the Heavenly Abode River's dragon race's little princess. She was protected by the dragon race since she was young. How could she not be worried? When Xiaohua returned to the 3 mainlands, the first thing he did was to release Fu Jiwen and the others, leaving Jiang Hong and Lu Yi behind. This was definitely a blow to Jiang Hong. Perhaps Xiaohua's departure from the 3 mainlands was merely 200 years in the Heavenly Abode River's dragon race's eyes, but in Jiang Hong's eyes, it was 10,000 years. How could she not be homesick? Seeing that Xiaohua had sent her and her descendants out of the Shenhua continent to face the dragon clan of the South Sea Dragon Palace, Jiang Hong's heart burned with passion. She craved power even more than Lu Yi, or perhaps she had grown up in an atmosphere of power since she was young. Her bones were filled with the desire for power. How could she not understand Xiaohua's intentions? However, Xiaohua had suddenly ordered her to lead the dragon race to the Heavenly Abode River. She didn't think of anything else. She and Lu Yi were a loving couple. Although she was a little domineering in the family, she wouldn't refute Lu Yi's words. She was surprised that Xiaohua had suddenly changed his mind. She didn't understand what Xiaohua was planning. If Xiaohua wanted to rule the Heavenly Abode River, in Jiang Hong's mind, the Heavenly Abode River wouldn't be able to resist at all. Xiaohua didn't think as much as Jiang Hong. He looked at Jiang Hong's dazed expression and asked curiously, "Disciple? What are you thinking? Haven't you always wanted to go back and take a look? Now that I've asked you to go back, why are you hesitating?" "Master." Jiang Hong hesitated for a moment before replying softly, "The Heavenly Abode River's dragon race has been weak for a long time. If the Fortune Gate's disciples go there, I'm afraid they will collapse very quickly." Fuck. Xiaohua immediately understood. He glared at Jiang Hong and scolded, "What kind of person do you think your master is? Why would your master put the Heavenly Abode River in his eyes? You're thinking too much." "Yes, master." Suddenly, Jiang Hong seemed to have been enlightened. She was really worried about her gains and losses. She had thought too much. Jiang Hong hurriedly wanted to bow down, but Xiaohua waved his hand to stop her. "Go. Heavenly Abode River is your maiden home, but it is also yours. Louis won't care about the Heavenly Abode River's matters in the future, but he still has to take care of the Heavenly Abode River's matters. Otherwise, you won't be able to answer to the elders in the future." "Disciple understands." Jiang Hong replied carefully. Following Lu Yi's orders, she led a group of dragon race experts out of the South Sea Dragon Palace and headed towards the Heavenly Abode River. Seeing Lu Yi and Jiang Hong leading the Sea tribe away with great familiarity, giving clear orders, the army orderly, and all the Sea tribe carrying out their orders with an aura of being experienced on the battlefield, complicated expressions appeared on the faces of the dragon kings of the four seas. Xiaohua's strength was outstanding, and he could suppress the dragon kings of the four seas. Although they were afraid, they weren't afraid because they had the dragon palaces of the four seas behind them. Xiaohua could kill the dragon kings of the four seas, but he couldn't annihilate the dragon palaces of the four seas. However, Lu Yi and Jiang Hong's troops were different. They represented a force, and they also represented a kind of ability. They represented Xiaohua's ability to wipe out the dragon palaces of the four seas. The dragon kings of the four seas looked at each other, and there was more meaning in their eyes than before. After Xiaohua put away the thunderbolt, he turned to look at Ao Hong and asked with a faint smile, "Master of the West Sea, can you bring me to the Dragon Palace of the West Sea now?" "Dragon Master Xiao, please." Ao Hong's heart trembled. Although there was still some arrogance on his face that made the other Sea tribe members pay attention, his tone was faintly respectful. Chapter 43-25. More than a month later, on the shore of the North Sea, waves of water came from the depths of the sea. Holding hands, the snow-white water splashed towards the reefs on the shore. When it got close, the water gushed towards the reefs enthusiastically. Unfortunately, the reefs only gave the water a hard and cold feeling. The water splashed onto the reefs and instantly shattered. The passion that only lasted for a few breaths was once again submerged in the sea. As the sea slowly fell, the sound of the water splashing was like waves of weeping. At this moment, the sun was setting again. The orange sunlight scattered across the surface of the water, adding a trace of beauty to the snow-white surface. Boom! A huge wave rose up from the sea, and a huge dragon with a dragon crown on its head flew out. Under the sunlight, the dragon's body was covered in scales that were several feet long, and they shone with a gorgeous color. When this huge dragon rushed out of the sea, its majestic aura instantly roared and surged in all directions. Not to mention the fish and shrimp in the sea, even the passionate water that occasionally hit the reef quietly retreated, not daring to act coquettishly. After the huge dragon, a tall and thin human figure also flew out of the sea. Although this human figure was not very tall, his figure was tall and straight. There was a faint smile between his brows. Those slanted eyebrows and slender phoenix eyes. Wasn't this Xiao Hua, Taoist Master Xiao? Xiao Hua flew out of the sea. His divine sense swept towards the reef. After a moment, he smiled and said, "So you've already reached the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. Thank you for sending me off for thousands of miles. This Xiao can't thank you enough." The huge dragon turned its head. Although the ferocious dragon head was full of majesty, the fear in its eyes was mixed with shame and anger. It looked rather complicated. This huge dragon was the West Sea's master, Ao Hong. Ao Hong opened his mouth and replied. His voice was several times louder than Xiao Hua's, "I don't dare. It's this king's honor to be able to send Dragon Master Xiao to the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. And, since we've already reached the Thousand Demons' sacred realm, we humans have an old saying, even if you send someone 1,000 miles away, they will still have to part. Let's part here. If fate wills it in the future, this Xiao will go to the West Sea Dragon Palace to visit Taoist." Xiao Hua smiled and nodded. He cupped his hands as if he was bidding farewell to an old friend. The enthusiasm on his face was even more beautiful than the sunset in the sky. Ao Hong forced a smile and said, "Dragon Master Xiao is the master of my dragon race. This king will always wait for Dragon Master's arrival in the Dragon Palace. When the time comes, we'll drink and chat." "All right." After Xiao Hua cupped his hands, he flew up and said, "Since that's the case, we'll part ways here." Cough cough. When Ao Hong saw that Xiao Hua was really about to leave, he hastily coughed and sent a voice transmission. "Dragon Master Xiao, earlier. Didn't you say that you were going to tell this prince that fire dragon's soul, ouch?" Xiao Hua patted his forehead, his face filled with apology, and said, "Look at me, in the Dragon Palace treasury, my eyes were dazzled, and I actually forgot such an important matter. Actually, I am not the only one who knows about the fire dragon's soul. There is also a member of the Sea clan in your West Sea Dragon Palace who knows about it. Go ahead and ask him." "Who?" Ao Hong was taken aback. He forgot to send a voice transmission as he exclaimed, "There are other members of the Sea race in my West Sea Dragon Palace that know of this matter?" "That's right." Xiao Hua nods, "You just have to ask Xiancheng in your Dragon Palace about this." "Xiancheng? West Sea Patrol Chief?" Ao Hong was truly confused. How did he know about the fire dragon's soul? Could it be that Dragon Master Xiao doesn't know where the fire dragon's soul is? "I only promised to tell you about the fire dragon's soul, but I didn't say where the fire dragon's soul is." Xiao Hua smiles, "If I tell you where the fire dragon's soul is, your West Sea Dragon Palace treasury will belong to me." After saying that, Xiao Hua's body flashed with lightning as he turned into a bolt of lightning and charged towards the Thousand Demons' sacred realm, disappearing in an instant. Damn it! At this moment, Ao Hong finally realized that he seemed to have been tricked by Xiao Hua. However, if he thought about it carefully, Xiao Hua only promised to tell him about the fire dragon's soul. Since he had already named Xiancheng, as long as he asked Xiancheng, wouldn't he know the whereabouts of the fire dragon's soul? Xiao Hua didn't go back on his word. Damn Xiancheng! Ao Hong didn't dare to vent his anger on Xiao Hua, but he dared to vent his anger on Xiancheng. After cursing angrily, his dragon body flipped a few times in the air and fell into the sea with a whoosh, disappearing in an instant. Dusk was over, the curtain of night rose, the stars were bright, and the crescent moon was hidden. In the darkness, Xiao Hua activated the wind escape technique and flew slowly. Beside him was Feng Wu, who had transformed into a human form. Feng Wu turned to look at the North Sea that was no longer in sight and covered her mouth with a smile. "Fellow Taoist is really sinister," sending Ao Hong away with one sentence. "This time, that damn Xiancheng will lose a layer of skin even if he doesn't die." "How can it be just a layer of skin?" Xiao Hua indifferently replied, I dare to bet with you that this time, Xiancheng is dead for sure. Why? Feng Wu didn't know if she really didn't know or if she was just chatty, so she asked back. Xiaohua replied, I believe fellow Taoist already knows the use of the fire dragon's soul. That fire dragon's soul is the inheritance of the Dragon King of the West Sea Dragon Palace. Without the fire dragon's soul, Ao Hong can't perfectly merge with the Dragon Emperor and can't perfectly suppress the West Sea. The biggest weakness of the Four Seas Grand Formation is him. Moreover, from Ao Hong's words and actions, it seems like he didn't leak the news of the fire dragon's soul to Ao Qian and the other Dragon Kings. In other words, he might suspect that the fire dragon's soul was taken away by the other Dragon Kings. Or maybe he didn't dare to let the other Dragon Kings know that the fire dragon's soul was lost. This kind of important news. Xiancheng actually didn't report it to him and secretly went to look for it himself. He even colluded with the human and demon race cultivators. Especially, because of this, Xiancheng even released the Grand Mist Ancestor, causing the fire dragon's soul to be lost again. Do you think Ao Qian will spare Xiancheng? The problem is, Xiancheng didn't know that that was the West Sea's eye, nor did he know that the fire dragon's soul was at that place. Feng Wu laughed, wouldn't Xiancheng die unjustly? It doesn't matter whether he knows the truth or not. The key is that he didn't report this matter to the West Sea Dragon Palace. Xiaohua waved his hand and replied, just this alone is enough to take his life. As for being unjustly accused, does fellow Taoist feel that he was wronged? If it wasn't for his trap in the stacked Jade Legacy realm that day, how could I have been besieged by the 4 Sea Dragon generals? I originally wanted to kill him with my own hands, but how can I make a move against him now? Borrowing Ao Hong's saber to kill him, wouldn't that be the best of both worlds? What best of both worlds? Feng Wu curled his lips again. You took away half of the treasures from the West Sea Dragon Palace's treasury and even used his saber. You took advantage of him. This is all consensual. Xiaohua did not refute, and only said with a smile, I took the treasure and returned the Dragon Emperor to Ao Hong. Without the Dragon Emperor, I don't think he would have been able to keep the other half of the treasury. Sigh, the 4 Sea Dragon Kings deserve it. Feng Wu sighed, they could have schemed against anyone, but they had to scheme against fellow Taoist. In this world, I have never seen anyone who could scheme against fellow Taoist. Xiaohua said proudly, I have a good character. I was originally thinking about how to plunder the South Sea Dragon Palace's treasury, but Ao Hong and the others sent the Dragon Emperor over. I can't not give Ao Hong face ah. That's right, fellow Taoist has already done well, and even returned the West Sea Dragon Emperor to Ao Hong. I thought that the thing in fellow Taoist's hands, how can I take it out again? Feng Wu looked at Xiaohua with a smile and said. Xiaohua rolled his eyes at Feng Wu and replied, the West Sea Dragon Emperor was only temporarily lent to Ao Hong. In the future, wouldn't I be the one waiting? Then how can Ao Hong, who doesn't have the fire dragon soul, keep the Dragon Emperor? Oh. Feng Wu was startled, and said with some surprise, what does fellow Taoist mean? Could it be that you still want to be the master of the West Sea? I have no interest in that boring thing. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, and previously, I didn't intend to interfere with the matters of the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas. However, since Ao Jia tricked me and wanted me to use the name of the Dragon Master to restrain the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas, then, we might as well do something bigger and stir up the water of the entire 4 Seas. Good boy. Feng Wu understood at once, and almost gave a thumbs up, and praised, why didn't I think of it? Fellow Taoist is still the best. It's not that great. Xiaohua was modest at this time, and waved his hand and said, seeing the Dragon Emperor of the West Sea Dragon King, I also had a sudden idea. Since Jiang Lure's Maitreya Buddha fruit can be given to Bodhi, why can't Ao Hong's West Sea Dragon Emperor be given to Little White Dragon? Isn't little white dragon obtaining the fire dragon soul the same logic as Bodhi obtaining the great derivation exquisite pagoda? The opportunity has already been placed in front of us. If we don't take it, we'd be fools. Hee, if it's so simple, why did fellow Taoist almost fall into the devil Tao that day? You even almost killed Buddha Bodhi? Feng Wu didn't know that he was exposing the scar in Xiao Hua's heart, and asked without thinking. Xiao Hua was already able to face it calmly at this time, and didn't care about Feng Wu's words. Instead, he smiled and said, if I take other people's things, I naturally won't think too much about it, but if I take my own family's things, I always feel like I'm robbing. Robbing is robbing. Feng Wu smiled and said, is there still so much to pay attention to? If I had such scruples like fellow Taoist, how could I still devour all living beings? Isn't this just fate? Xiao Hua explained, for example, little white dragon obtaining the fire dragon soul can aspire to be the dragon emperor of the West Sea Dragon Palace, and fellow Taoist devouring the holy bloodline can aspire to be the dragon emperor. At this point, Xiao Hua paused, and asked tentatively, by the way, is there anything wrong with the heavenly phoenix's consciousness? What's his mission? There's nothing wrong. Feng Wu shook his head, I still don't know anything about the heavenly phoenix's mission. Alas, let's leave it to fate. Xiao Hua smiled helplessly. The matter of the heavenly phoenix and the holy bloodline was probably not something he could solve with his current strength. Alas, they're all from the demon clan. Why is the dragon clan so cunning? Feng Wu also sighed like Xiao Hua, there's so much to pay attention to when giving a dragon master. At that time, I really thought it was to rope in fellow Taoist AO. Chapter 43-26. Looking at Feng Wu's sighing appearance, Xiao Hua understood that Feng Wu had obtained the position of great sage, and his spiritual wisdom had already begun to awaken. Now, he had also reached the crucial point of forming a human nature. Xiao Hua had to give him some enlightenment at all times, so he patiently explained, actually, what we think is not unreasonable. It was also one of their thoughts. However, Ao Jia is the great elder of Dragon Palace. He stands at a high position and sees far, so he knows more information than us. When he was trying to rope us in, he would naturally consider other factors, such as the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas disobedience, the betrayal of the Gui clan, the coveting of the second elder, and so on. As for us, we appeared at the right place at the right time, which allowed Ao Jia to make the right choice. By making I the dragon teacher, firstly, it would allow us to rope in Reverend Yun and express Dragon Island's attitude. Secondly, it would give Ao Zhan a reason to be at ease, allowing him to join hands with I when he could not get help from Dragon Island. I had thought of these two reasons before, but now, looking at the situation of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, I have a third reason. I can restrain the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas with the title of Dragon Teacher. Oh, wrong, Reverend Yun can restrain the Dragon Emperors of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. I reckon the 4 Dragon Emperors are not suppressed by the Elders of the Dragon Palace, which is the most fundamental reason why the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas refused to submit to Dragon Island. Of course, I reckon there is a 4th or even a 5th reason, but I can't recall it for now. However, I don't like to be someone else's chess piece. Since I don't want to be a chess piece, I have to jump out from the chessboard. What I have gained in the heavenly prison for tens of thousands of years, what my fellow Taoists have gained from the bloody storm in the ruins, what Wen Chu has gained from the sages of literature, what Feng Wu has gained from the stars, what heavenly Tao has gained from the primordial purple qi, and what we have gained from opening the heavens in the primitive continent and saving the world. All these are enough for me to stand at the top of the 3 continents. Of course, it is impossible to digest all these without tens of thousands of years of cultivation or some extreme opportunities. However, what I have gained so far is enough for I to jump out from the chessboard. I have indeed come out, but the chessboard of the Dragon Clan is still there, and the game must continue. Therefore, other than the arrangement of the Dragon Island and the Dragon Palace, I have also made a third arrangement. Ao Zhan was indebted to I, and Ao Zhan was also a man of his word. Between Dragon Island and I, he knew who he would choose. Ao Hong was nearing his end. After the Four Seas Grand Array, there might be some turmoil in the Four Seas. The little white dragon had a chance to enter the West Sea Dragon Palace. Although the Dongtian River had been pardoned by the Dragon Island, they might not listen to Ao Zhan's orders. Now, they were in an awkward situation. Jiang Hong had led the Shenhua continent's dragon race back. She was the little princess of the Dongtian River, and it was natural for her to control the Dongtian River. With this three-step flag, does the Dragon Island elder still want to play chess with I? The Dragon Palace of the Four Seas has been arrogant for too long. We still have Reverend Yun. Feng Wu was happy to hear that as well, and said hastily, with Reverend Yun here, who can compete with him? With the axe of the South Sea Dragon Palace. Which stupid dragon dared to go against Reverend Yun? Reverend Yun doesn't even have to show up in the future. He can just be a title. Xiaofan said with a smile, besides, the current Reverend Yun does not belong to the three continents anymore. What do you mean, fellow Taoist? Feng Wu did not understand. Fellow Taoist, how did you feel when you became a great saint and looked down at all the stars? Xiaofan asked. All the mountains were small. All the saints were under my feet. Feng Wu answered proudly. That's right. If that's the case, will you still lower yourself to the same level as old demon Jifeng? Feng Wu shouted without hesitation, of course. If he dares to provoke me, I'll kill him. All right. Let's just pretend I didn't say anything. Xiaofan held his forehead with one hand, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. You are a great saint now. Why don't you have the awareness of being a great saint? Woo. While the two of them were talking, several streaks of star power appeared in the sky above a few dark mountain ranges not far away and fell into the mountain ranges. Although the stellar energy was invisible to the naked eye, it was difficult to detect with divine sense. However, Feng Wu had already become a great saint and was very sensitive to the energy of the stars and moon. She had already seen them and released her Yuan will to check. It's really the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. After a while, Feng Wu withdrew her Yuan will and said with a smile, there are actually a few demons whose strength is close to that of a great demon who are cultivating the demon race's secret arts. Xiaofan clapped his hands and said with a smile, if that's the case, let's hurry. Hurry? Feng Wu laughed and looked at Xiaofan thoughtfully. Where are you going, fellow Taoist? Cough. Xiaofan coughed twice, his gaze looking at the endless starry sky as he replied, that greater demon died very decisively. Not only did I not know who instigated him to come over, I also don't know where his Immortal's cave is. However, this fellow's patriarch should be very famous. Let's go to the Thousand Demons' sacred realm and look for him. There will definitely be an answer. That day, didn't you ask Samantabhadra Bodhisattva who this so-called patriarch is? Feng Wu asked curiously. Xiaofan rolled his eyes and replied, at that time, I was concerned about Lu Er's matter. Then, Namo Maitreya Buddha achieved enlightenment. I didn't think of this at all. However, since this patriarch is someone who gave Mahavarakana Buddha a headache, he must be very famous. Won't we know if we ask him? Then let's go. After Feng Wu finished speaking, she raised her head and let out a phoenix cry. That phoenix cry not only shook the surroundings, but also attracted countless starlight to fall. Feng Wu's eyes were filled with desire and pride. She flapped her wings and turned into a stream of light, rushing into the depths of the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. Under the starlight, the Thousand Demons' sacred realm was like a huge monster crawling there. An indescribable wild aura spread out from the depths of the continent. Night passed and dawn arrived. Just as the sun and moon were alternating, Xiaohua and Feng Wu flew to a barren swamp. However, this swamp was somewhat different from the swamps Xiaohua had seen before. There were many small beasts in the swamp. They were either gliding along the surface of the water or darting around wantonly in the red and black mud. Occasionally, some small flying creatures like dragonflies would fly by. The clever little beasts had already jumped up high and stretched out their tongues to swallow them. The mosquitoes and other creatures that were commonly seen in swamps could not be seen at all here. Even the fishy smell was almost indiscernible. What was left was only some rich starlight aura. The morning sun had just risen, and everywhere it shone, the swamp was already covered in sparkling gold. The many little beasts were a little lazy under the sunlight. In the gentle breeze, the starlight aura gradually faded and was replaced by the extremely hot aura of the sun. The swamp was surrounded by spiritual trees that were several feet long. At this moment, the few dewdrops on the branches and leaves of the spiritual trees had already turned into nothingness. Along with the dewdrops, the little beasts had also disappeared. Above the mud of the swamp, whirlpools could be vaguely seen. Clearly, the little beasts had already hidden inside. Roar, roar. After a short while, hundreds of demonic beasts emerged from the mud in other places. These demonic beasts were dozens of feet in size. Other than the 3 sharp horns on their heads, there were also some small thorns on their bodies. However, these small thorns were covered by a thick layer of mud, and only a few extremely short thorns could be seen. Aoo aoo. These demonic beasts had just poked their bodies out, and before they could even roar twice, they immediately let out low howls. Their huge bodies stopped in the swamp, and they didn't dare to move at all. On the heads of the monsters, the eyes behind the mud all flashed with terrifying gazes. Swoosh. Under the gazes of these demonic beasts, Feng Wu and Xiaohua's figures seemed ordinary yet extremely fast as they flashed past in the sky. Only after the two of them had flown far away did these demonic beasts become lively once again, as expected of the 1,000 monsters' sacred realm. Xiaohua quietly withdrew his divine sense from the swamp and said in a low voice, "No matter if it's a high-level monster or a low-level monster, they all have a natural sense for experts. We have yet to release our divine sense or origin thought. As long as we don't conceal our aura, they will be able to detect us early, yes." Feng Wu did not release her origin thought. Instead, she looked down and sighed. The 3 continents are the hidden immortal continent, the Western Paradise, and the 1,000 monsters' sacred realm. Although there are 4 seas in between, they are still the same realm. However, for some reason, these 3 continents are completely different. The hidden immortal continent is filled with boundless noble qi, and the human clan's luck is endless. The Western Paradise is filled with Buddhist light, and the sound of wooden fish and the chanting of scriptures are endless. Even the beasts seem to carry an extremely heavy benevolence. Looking at the Western Paradise again today, there are endless ravines, endless forests, and countless monsters and monsters. What's special is that the 1,000 monsters' sacred realm is somewhat similar to the prehistoric continent. Many of the mountains and spiritual trees are several times taller than other places. If it weren't for the abundant vitality and the strong power of the stars and moon, I would almost think that this is the prehistoric continent. Xiaohua's figure did not change. Following Feng Wu's flapping wings, he also looked at the abnormally tall mountain range in the distant horizon and nodded, "Fellow Taoist is right. I also suspect that the 1,000 monsters' sacred realm might be a fragment of an ancient prehistoric continent. Moreover, there are mysteries in this fragment that we don't know about. This is why the power of the stars and moon is more favored, causing the monster clan to prosper and also creating countless great monsters, monster kings, and great saints." "Yes," Feng Wu said with a smile, "although this is the first time I have come to the 1,000 monsters' sacred realm, under the power of the stars and moon and feeling the aura of countless monster clans on the continent, I actually feel like I'm at home. Moreover, I also feel a kind of summoning in that place. It's the aura of the main hall that appeared in the void when I attained the great saint realm that day." As she spoke, Feng Wu raised her eyes to look at the depths of the Thousand Monsters' sacred realm. Her eyes revealed an indescribable expression. Chapter 43-27. That's naturally where the Great Sage Hall is located. Xiaohua's eyes also revealed a strange expression as he replied, "If nothing unexpected happens, every demon that attains the Great Sage Realm will be able to sense the Great Sage Hall's aura within the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. However, with our current situation, it doesn't seem appropriate for us to enter the Great Sage Hall so soon. Isn't it just a Great Sage Hall? I don't even have the patience to go." Feng Wu said proudly, "Besides, who knows what kind of trash the great sages in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm are? They've already divided the forces of the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. If I suddenly joined, wouldn't the balance be broken? They don't seem troublesome, but I do. Let's find a demon and ask them first." Xiaohua also didn't like troublesome matters, so he nodded and shifted his gaze away from the Great Sage Hall. Up ahead, Feng Wu's origin sense swept out and easily discovered the location of the changes in the power of the stars and moon. "There's a great demon there." Feng Wu's figure landed on a mountain range in the distance, and Xiaohua naturally followed. Boom! Just as they flew close to the mountain range, an untamed aura surged from the depths of the mountain range and directly pressed towards Feng Wu. A cold voice sounded in Feng Wu and Xiaohua's ears, "Where did this demon come from?" Boom! Before the demon could finish speaking, Feng Wu sneered. She flapped her wings, and the aura around her surged out like a torrent, instantly dispersing the great demon's aura. The demon's untamed arrogance immediately disappeared, and his cold voice was replaced with apprehension. He cried out in a low voice, "Senior, please spare my life. This lowly one didn't know it was Senior who had graced us with your presence." Feng Wu snorted coldly and rushed into the mountain range. However, in just half a cup of tea's time, Feng Wu and Xiaohua flew out of the mountain range with deep confusion on their faces. After identifying the direction slightly, they continued to fly towards the north. After flying for half a day, Feng Wu once again rushed into a pool and asked another great demon. After a few times, the sky was already close to dusk. The starry sky of the Thousand Demons' sacred realm seemed to have arrived earlier than the hidden immortal continent and the pure land of ultimate bliss. Under the twilight starry sky, Xiaohua and Feng Wu slowed down. Feng Wu was unable to restrain the bewilderment in his heart, and he spoke first. "Fellow Taoist, looks like the matter isn't as simple as we thought." Xiaohua also replied somewhat self-deprecatingly, "Yes, I have always been somewhat self-righteous. This time, I thought that I already knew that the great demon's backing was the great sage that even the Mahavajrana revered one was afraid of, and that I only needed to find a great demon and ask for the details. But now, I already know who the 6 great sages of the Thousand Demons' sacred realm are, and I have already asked about their residences. However, these great demons just don't know where these 6 places are. Not to mention who the great sage was that even the Mahavajrana revered Buddha feared. These narrow-minded great demons actually thought that every great sage could easily kill the Mahavajrana revered Buddha. It's really too laughable." Feng Wu looked at the gradually darkening sky and said, "That's right. The 6 great sages of the Thousand Demons' sacred realm are ranked according to their rankings: the golden-winged great roc, the profound armored pentaceratops, the flying feather void beast, the 5-colored sea god shell, the scarlet flame vermilion bird, and the nether demonic dragon spider. If we only look at the great demon's body, it's somewhat similar to the 5-colored sea god shell. However, the 5-colored sea god shell is ranked 4th among the 6 great sages. How could its divine ability make the Mahavajrana revered Buddha fear it? Perhaps this 5-colored sea god shell great sage has a special divine ability? Can it restrain the Buddhist sect's methods? Xiao Hua frowned and guessed. Feng Wu shrugged and replied, perhaps. Of course, what the 6 great sages' true bodies are is just a legend. Perhaps the names of their true bodies are different from their true bodies? Xiao Hua said again, just like these great demons know that the golden-winged Great Peng lives in Cangyue heaven, but where Cangyue heaven is, whether it's in the sky or on the ground, they don't know at all. Yes, the mystic armored Pentaceratops lives in the endless sea, the feathered void beast lives in the Xian space forest, the 5-colored sea god Shell lives in the star-obscuring lake, the scarlet flame vermilion bird and the nether demonic dragon spider live in the sun vault mountain and the dark abyss respectively. However, these places are legends in the first place. They're a type of symbol. No one knows where these places are located in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. Feng Wu chimed in rather impatiently. Xiao Hua was somewhat pensive. He looked in a direction and said, of course they don't know where the Great Sage Hall is. Could it be that we have to make a trip to the Great Sage Hall? If you want to go, then go. Feng Wu urged, so what if there are 6 great sages? Can they defeat us fellow Taoists? Xiao Hua thought for a moment and shook his head. Now that the 6 great sages are in the open and fellow Taoists are in the dark, the situation is to our advantage. Moreover, if we rashly appear in the Great Sage Hall, things will become even more troublesome. Forget it, forget it. Feng Wu shook his head and said, I won't think too much about it. I'll listen to fellow Taoists' instructions and do whatever fellow Taoist says. Hearing this, Xiao Hua smiled and said, let's follow our previous plan and take it step by step. If there's no news today, perhaps there will be news tomorrow or the day after. Besides, if Little White Dragon is in trouble, he would have been in trouble long ago. He wouldn't care about these few days. Alright, we'll listen to fellow Taoist. Feng Wu nodded and looked at the night sky again. He asked, what about now? Shall we continue forward and find other great demons or even demon kings to ask? There's no need to be so anxious. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said with a smile, we still have other things to do. As he spoke, Xiao Hua stopped and invited Wen Chu and Taoist Witch out of the space. He said, fellow Taoists, I have always had 2 questions that I haven't figured out the answer to. Since we have nothing to do tonight, how about we have a casual chat? Okay. Wen Chu and Taoist Witch landed in the sky and understood the current situation in a moment. Wen Chu clapped his hands and said with a smile, the ancients often say that drinking wine and chatting merrily with the bright moon in the sky is the joy of life. Today, the moon is not round, but the stars are shining brightly. It's a great fortune for us to discuss the Tao with the stars. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, it's not about discussing the Tao. It's just that I have some doubts that are related to fellow Taoists. That's why I said it. Fellow Taoist, please tell us. Taoist Witch looked at Xiao Hua in confusion. Fellow Taoist Wen Chu cultivates a Confucian cultivation method. That day on the primitive continent, fellow Taoist Feng Wu was recognized by the Big Dipper in the 7 Stars formation in the South Sea Dragon Palace. Fellow Taoist Feng Wu also obtained the recognition of the Big Dipper. The stars revolved around the moon. It was also extremely thrilling for the 10,000 demons to turn into stars. Xiao Hua said tirelessly, whether it's the Confucian saints or the demon race's stars, they were all at a realm that we couldn't imagine before. Now that we've seen them and they've cultivated to such a realm, I can't help but have a question. Where did the saints and 10,000 demons come from? There's no need to talk about the saints. They don't exist in the hidden immortal continent anymore. They probably went to the heavenly court. However, among the saints, other than the ones we're familiar with, there are many that we've never seen before. These unfamiliar saints, are they from the 3 continents? Or are they from other realms? As for 10,000 demons, according to I's knowledge, there are 6 great saints after the 1,000 demons' sacred realm. When the stars revolve around the moon, are those great saints from the Thousand Demons sacred realm? Are there any demon saints from other realms? Hiss. Wen Chu and Feng Wu looked at each other with surprise in their eyes. They've never thought about this. Xiao Hua's words made them think of many things. Wen Chu spoke first. In my opinion, the saints aren't all saints from the hidden immortal continent. Why? Xiao Hua looked at Wen Chu thoughtfully and asked. It's very simple. The Great Desolation continent is far away in the torrent of time. How could ordinary saints have the strength to accurately find where we are? Wen Chu replied, since the saints can accurately appear in front of me, it means that those saints have reached a realm that we can't pry into at the moment. How could a saint of this realm be born in the hidden immortal continent? Even fellow Taoist Wen Chu thinks so. I don't need to say anything more. Feng Wu said with a smile, the Thousand Demons sacred realm can produce 6 great saints, but they might not be qualified to appear in the stars revolve around the moon. Even if the Thousand Demons sacred realm produced great saints in the past, how many of them can be ranked in the heavenly stars? Didn't fellow Taoist also say that? Outside the Thousand Demons sacred realm, there's the 10,000 Demons realm. That place is probably much bigger than the 3 continents, right? The chances of great saints appearing there are also more. Yes. In that case, other than the 3 continents and the Dawn Rain continent, there are many realms and many starry skies. The saints point Wen Chu and stars revolve around the moon, will also appear in other realms. Xiao Hua nodded slightly. Wen Chu looked at the starry skies and sighed, when I don't look up, I always feel that I'm the master of the world. I always feel that I can look down on the mortal world and be my own master. Only when I see the starry skies will I understand my true position. Only then will I know that I'm just a speck of dust, an ant under the starry skies. Huh, fellow Taoist Wen Chu, don't be sad. Xiao Hua said with a smile, even if we're ants, we're still the biggest ones. That's reasonable. Taoist Witch clapped his hands and said, I wonder what fellow Taoist's second question is. I'll have to ask fellow Taoist to explain the second question. Xiao Hua said with a smile, of course, I had this question when I saw countless souls at the bottom of the heaven and earth pagoda in the great sky array of the Great Desolation continent. What's the use of souls that made the heavenly demon of the melting paradise try his best to collect the souls of the desolation beasts? When we were in the ruins, didn't the demon emperor also collect the souls of humans? Taoist which didn't think at all and answered, the bodies of humans are comparable to a world, and the souls of humans are even more mysterious. It's not an exaggeration to say that they contain the heavenly Tao. Even though I have studied soul cultivation techniques and comprehended some of the inheritances of the 13 gods, it's really difficult for me to answer fellow Taoist's question. I don't know how to answer it. P.S. This is a transitional chapter. Everyone, take your time and don't rush. Chapter 43-28. Actually, fellow Taoist, you don't have to think too deeply about it. Feng Wu suggested, the heavenly devil activated the heavenly dome formation to destroy the primitive continent, but what good would it do him if the primitive continent was destroyed? Of course, the benefit would be to obtain more souls of the primitive beasts. Why would the heavenly devil obtain the souls of the primitive beasts? Isn't it to leave the primitive continent? In other words, 1 or 2 souls are useless, but hundreds of millions of souls have secrets that we don't know. They can save the heavenly devil from the primitive continent. That's right, that's right. Xiao Hua smiled, that day on the primitive continent, weren't you entangled by the dark sky thunder vine? Didn't a demon race want to seize the Kunlun mirror? Presumably, that demon race was transformed by the heavenly devil. He wanted to use the Kunlun mirror to escape from here. In other words, his soul can have the same ability as the Kunlun mirror. Not only that. Taoist which replied, I can vaguely feel that there is a great power in the soul. This power might be even stronger than the magic power of the Taoist sect. If we can control this power of the soul, we won't have to be afraid of facing immortal Emperor Gaochen and Vairocana, revered Buddha. The power of the soul, that's the power of reincarnation. How can an ordinary cultivator comprehend it? Xiaohua couldn't help but sigh when he thought of Netherworld and Xue Xue. Huh, fellow Taoist, you have a good character. No one in the entire three realms can compare to you. If you can't comprehend it, it's even more impossible for others. Wen Chu said with a smile. Now, it's naturally impossible. However, that doesn't mean it won't be possible in the future. Xiaohua replied proudly, I think that the soul is the core of soul cultivation. Now, the million soul cultivators in Meng Mountains are divided into 13 branches, and each branch cultivates a different soul cultivation. Aren't they also neglecting the essentials? If fellow Taoist which wants to cultivate Confucian cultivation to the extreme, you still need to carefully comprehend the power of the soul and find the essence of it. That's right. Taoist which also sighed and replied, fellow Taoist is right. I have also been thinking hard about this recently. Now, even though we've obtained the inheritance of the soul cultivator, all the cultivation within it seems to utilize the energy of the soul, the energy of the bloodline, the energy of negative karma, and so on. Even though it seems very mysterious, its might can't compare to the Tao sect's techniques. In fact, it wasn't even as good as the green seal script that I had cultivated earlier. Just like what fellow Taoists said about the Confucian cultivators, we soul cultivators seem to have lost our way in the long river of time. The green seal text is definitely the right direction. Xiaohua nodded, because the spirit techniques of the 13 branches can be traced back to the source using the green seal text. However, green seal runes were far too difficult to cultivate. That was why the adepts had no choice but to seek shortcuts. The more shortcuts one took, the more one would forget the real path. But what was the essence of the green seal text? Was it a soul? The power of the soul. Speaking up to here, Xiaohua suddenly laughed involuntarily. He waved his hand and said, I think too much. With our realms and the 3 continents we are currently in, it is very unlikely that we will be able to obtain the correct answer. Fellow Taoist should take one step at a time, slowly cultivate, and slowly search. Perhaps after a long time, when we suddenly look back, we will find the answer. At that time, when we think about tonight's discussion, we will definitely have some thoughts. That's right. If we didn't go to the heavens prison and experience the ruins and the great desolate continent, how would we know so many secrets? Since we know that there is such a wonderful place in the outer world, we naturally have to work harder and strive to have the ability to go there as soon as possible. Actually, this little one is somewhat regretful. Wen Chu said thoughtfully, why didn't we stay in the higher world? Since that is where we will go in the future, why did we return to the 3 continents? Why did we have to cultivate diligently before going to the higher world? Xiaohua smiled and said, not to mention that the Great Desolate Continent is an incomplete Great Desolate Continent with time turbulence outside. That is a place that even the Hua Le Heavenly Demon doesn't want to stay in. How good could our fate be if we stayed there? Although I don't know why the Dragon God and the previous Maitreya Buddha reincarnated, I feel that it has something to do with them wanting to leave the Great Desolate Continent. Moreover, the ruins. Speaking up to here, Xiaohua's smile disappeared. Instead, he looked up at the bright stars in the night sky and said bitterly, under the great desolate star storm, I don't know if the ruins can still exist. Will Yu Mingxin and Wu Tian be able to escape with their lives? We understand fellow immortal's heart. After a while, Wen Chu continued, that place may be suitable for fellow immortal, but it is not suitable for this little one and the other fellow immortal. There is another layer of meaning. Xiaohua nodded. Just now, I also said that in order to pursue a shortcut, the cultivation system of Confucian cultivators and soul cultivators seems to have deviated from the essence. Although it is an excellent choice for us to stay in the higher world, isn't this also a shortcut? If we don't go through the tempering of the lower world, if we don't go through the normal cultivation path, how can we have the realm and strength of the higher world? Strength can increase, but to enter the higher world, strength is not the only thing that is needed, right? There are many necessary things that we don't know. Without these necessary things, we are trees without roots in the higher world. Therefore, I feel that it is better to return to the three continents step by step. Of course, there is also the knot in fellow immortal's heart. Taoist Witch smiled. Just as he said that, Xiaohua raised his eyebrows again and looked faintly at a place. Since Xiaohua had made a move, the other clones naturally noticed something as well. Feng Wu even asked curiously, why is he here? Xiaohua's hand pinched his chin as he thoughtfully looked into the distance. Some extraordinary splendor flashed within his eyes. However, after merely a moment, he was stunned once again. His eyes turned, and once again looked towards another direction. The thoughtful expression on his face became even denser. After a moment, Xiaohua withdrew his divine sense and looked at Taoist Witch and Wen Chu. He smiled and said, "Fellow immortal, what do you think?" Wen Chu shook his head slightly. "If I'm not wrong, these people coming from afar to the Thousand Demons sacred realm should be related to that Xiaohua. But the problem is, since even the dragon kings of the four seas don't want to easily leak the information to us, how do these Dao sect cultivators know?" Taoist Witch blinked his green eyes and said with a smile, "If I say that fellow immortal is too narcissistic, would fellow immortal be angry? Although some of these Dao sect cultivators are familiar with fellow immortal, they might have come here to hide from the immortal palace's inspector. It might not be related to fellow immortal. You guys are really troublesome." Feng Wu said disdainfully, "Fellow immortal, you just have to show up in front of them and ask them. They have already sworn loyalty for 500 or 1,000 years. It has only been 200 years. Are they still not listening to fellow immortal? Fellow immortal, you are thinking too simply." Taoist Witch glanced at Xiaohua and said, "The human heart is the most unpredictable thing in this world. Do you know what a honey mouth is and a sword in the belly is? Do you know what a knife hidden in a smile is?" Back then, these cultivators had no choice but to pledge their allegiance to you. After witnessing your strength, they decided to pledge their allegiance to you wholeheartedly. As for what they are thinking in their hearts, it is impossible for us to know. Soul search. Feng Wu replied decisively, "Fellow immortal, you just need to point your finger and you will know everything, right? Besides, don't you still have the dream mirage butterfly? Once the illusion is released, their state of mind will be immediately revealed." Xiaohua looked at Feng Wu, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. He explained, "If it is not necessary, it is best not to use the soul search technique. Although the illusion is useful, don't you think that using the dream mirage butterfly on these Dao sect cultivators whose cultivation is only at the peak of the 4th level and the lower of the 5th level of essence energy is degrading? I don't think so." Feng Wu did not have the consciousness of a great sage and replied without hesitation, "I only think that the most direct way to find the truth is the best way. There is no need to complicate things. Actually." Wen Chu looked at Xiaohua and asked again, "Fellow immortal, you are not only worried about this, right? Because of the appearance of that great demon from the Great Snow Mountain and the obscurity of the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas, fellow immortal is still worried that there is some other truth behind this seemingly simple matter." "That's right." Xiaohua nodded, "Although I did not say it clearly, that Dragon King of the West Sea already understood. He even took out the treasury of the West Sea Dragon Palace, but did not want to solve the doubts in Ai's heart. Don't you think it is strange? Could it be that the mastermind behind this is more powerful than the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas?" Feng Wu seemed to understand something and sneered, "Is it that great sage of the dragon clan called the profound armored Pentaceratops? If so, I would like to see what kind of extraordinary methods this great sage of the dragon clan has." On the surface, in the Thousand Demons sacred realm, the profound armored Pentaceratops is the most likely to be interested in the five-clawed golden dragon. But on a deeper level, since the dragon kings of the four seas dared to make a move on some elders of Dragon Island might not dare to. Xiaohua said again, oh, also, the death of Ao Qian, the fourth prince of the South Sea Dragon Palace, was too strange. Although Ao Concrete cared about his face and only said that Ao Qian committed suicide, I feel that things are not that simple. How could Ao Qian suddenly have the guts to kill 3 princes in the South Sea Dragon Palace? Fellow immortal, you mean? Feng Wu frowned. Behind all this is most likely an elder of Dragon Island? That's right. Xiaohua sighed, that Ao Jia has caused I to be in trouble. A dragon master with an undeserved reputation. TSK, how much trouble has he caused? Fellow Daoist, you've changed the topic and confused fellow Daoist Feng Wu. Daoist Witch said with a smile, we're going to find out who's behind this, but it's still too early for that. Chapter 43-29. Feng Wu glared at Daoist Wu and said with dissatisfaction, who says eyes confused? It's just that these Daoist cultivators are too weak and can't know the truth. You don't want to use your divine ability to get the results from them and want to use other methods. It's not that I don't know, I just feel that if we interrogate great demons during the day and stop at night when we meet Daoist cultivators, it's like we're selling dog meat under false pretenses. Indeed. Xiaohua nodded with satisfaction. However, great demons are different from Daoist cultivators. My fortune gate will definitely become the pillar of support for the rise of Daoist sects in the 3 continents. These Daoist cultivators will also be a great help. I have to reconsider their loyalty. Don't forget that some things can be tested and some things can't be tested. If you face human nature directly, many people won't be able to withstand this kind of test. In the end, both sides will lose. Wen Chu suddenly interrupted and reminded him. Oh. Xiaohua was stunned. He looked at Wen Chu and said, you actually know this? It's worthy of celebration. This might be what I think, but... Wen Chu said meaningfully, a lot of it is what you think in your heart. We just inherited it from your memories. Xiaohua smiled. He knew that Wen Chu was reminding him that even though he had many clones, they had all inherited his thoughts and thoughts after all. It was best that the tragedy that Buddha Subhuti had suffered that day did not happen again in the future. Xiaohua didn't say anything in this regard. After all, he didn't want this kind of thing to happen. However, there were many temptations in this world, and cultivators had to face many difficulties. No one knew what would happen in the future. As long as there was more trust between each other and less suspicion, even if there were some disasters, there would be a time when the rain would pass and the sky would clear up. Daoist Wu and Daoist Wen Chu, return first. Xiaohua thought for a moment and instructed. Alright, be careful. Daoist Wu and Wen Chu cupped their hands and entered the space. Xiaohua then said to Feng Wu, how much of your strength can you conceal now? When Feng Wu heard this, she retracted her aura and turned into a star monstrous race. Then, he proudly said to Xiaohua, this poor Daoist is now in the devouring space realm. Everything in the world can be devoured by this poor Daoist, even the power of the stars and moon is no exception. Therefore, this poor Daoist can conceal his strength at will. Xiaohua looked at Feng Wu from head to toe and said with a smile, although fellow Daoist has concealed your strength, do you think that your aura can escape the detection of the 1,000 demons sacred realm demons? Well. Feng Wu thought of the few great demons and demon beasts he encountered during the day and hesitated. After a few seconds, he shook his head and said, it's an instinctive perception. I can't guarantee it. Forget it. Xiaohua said with a smile, fellow Daoist, you should go back and rest first. I will go there myself. Fellow Daoist. Feng Wu asked in an unconvinced manner, do you really think you can fool them? Of course. Xiaofan smiled and transformed into the shape of a python dragon. At the same time, he took out the hallucinatory pearl and placed it in his mouth. In an instant, a python dragon aura appeared in front of Feng Wu. Even with Feng Wu's cultivation, she couldn't detect any flaws. Damn it! Feng Wu was truly in awe. How could I have forgotten about this hallucinatory pearl? Fellow Taoist, you used the 1,000 illusion pearl to transform into a demon from the Enlightenment Star realm. Such a demon can be found everywhere in the 1,000 demons sacred realm. You don't even need to waste your time scheming. You just need to fabricate a story to confuse these Tao sect cultivators, right? I didn't think too much. Xiaofan said with a smile, this dragon clan's 1,000 illusion pearl still has a bit of dragon chi. I can transform into the shape of a python dragon and cover up this flaw. Oh. The Crown Prince of the North Sea Dragon Palace didn't seem to notice when you transformed into a demon with the 1,000 illusion pearl. Feng Wu said curiously. How could the cultivation of that time be compared to today? Xiaofan explained, when I took out the hallucinatory pearl, I sensed the dragon clan's aura in it. Although it was very faint, it was still there. Forget it. I will also go back to cultivate. If fellow Taoist needs feel free to ask to come out. Feng Wu knew that Xiaofan was right. She didn't want to ask any more questions. She stretched and said a few words before returning to the Shenhua continent to cultivate. Xiaofan looked into the distance. His body swayed, and the body of the python dragon entered the void, disappearing in a few breaths. In the direction that Xiaofan went, there was a lush forest thousands of miles away. This forest was similar to the forests in other parts of the 1,000 demons sacred realm. The trees were huge, and the branches and leaves were extremely dense. They covered thousands of miles of undulating hills. In this forest, there were many small demon beasts roaring and leaping between the trees under the moonlight. Although these small demon beasts hadn't shed their fur yet, their natural affinity with the power of the moon and stars made them very lively. At this moment, above the demon beasts, there were a dozen or so human cultivators in the canopy of the trees. They used the thick tree trunks to hide their bodies as they silently flew forward. The two people at the front were Shui Mingzi and Ao Zhantian, whom Xiaofan was familiar with. As for the dozen or so people behind Ao Zhantian, Xiaofan was also familiar with them. They were the nascent soul cultivators that he had saved on the Yaotai mountain. They were also the dozen or so nascent soul cultivators who had pledged their loyalty to Xiaofan. Whoosh! Just as Shui Mingzi, Ao Zhantian, and the others were flying, a pitch-black bat-like demon beast that was over 200 feet in size flew out from a hill about 10 kilometers in front of them. Although the sound of it tearing through the air was extremely soft, it created ripples in the air like boiling water. These ripples spread out in all directions, and the demon beasts that were celebrating in the forest immediately fled. However, before they had a chance to escape, the ripples had already caught up to them. Wherever the ripples passed, many of the small demon beasts fell to the ground like dumplings. There were even some thick and sturdy trees that were letting out creaking sounds. Thin lines could be seen on the surface of these trees, making for a very strange sight. Kacha. A very soft sound came from the canopy of the forest. The pitch-black bat-like demon beast immediately stopped in mid-air in alarm. Its hideous head that was hidden in the darkness of the night turned slightly. Cough cough. A sound similar to that of a human coughing sounded from the head as it charged toward the canopy in the distance. Boom boom boom. As the sound passed, the branches above the canopy were all reduced to dust. A passageway that was over 300 feet in size was revealed in the canopy of the canopy. However, the passageway stretched for several dozen kilometers, and the sound gradually faded away. The pitch-black bat-like demon beast also didn't discover anything strange within the canopy of the canopy. Squeak squeak. The demon beast let out a few low cries as if it was saying something. Then, it spread its wings and charged out of the canopy. Boom boom. The invisible power of the moon and stars fell from the sky, enveloping the demon beast's body. The demon beast spun a few rounds happily under the power of the moon and stars before flying toward a mountain peak in the distance. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, a Tao sect cultivator with half of his Taoist robe torn appeared above the passageway that had been blasted open by the bat-like demon beast. His face was flushed with embarrassment. In the other hand of this cultivator, there was a small demonic beast that had been imprisoned. At this moment, the small demon beast was struggling with all its might under the restraint of the cultivator. Sparks were flying out of its mouth and nose from time to time. However, regardless of whether it was sound or light, not a single sound escaped from the cultivator's restraint. The night sky was still as tranquil as ever. After the human cultivator appeared, Shui Mingzi, Ao Zhantian, and the others also appeared on the treetops several hundred feet away with nervous expressions on their faces. A trace of displeasure flashed through Ao Zhantian's eyes as he scolded, "Fellow Taoist Xian, what's going on here? Why were you so careless?" The embarrassment on fellow Taoist Xian's face hadn't faded away, and when he heard Ao Zhantian scolding, he became even more embarrassed. He waved his hand and explained, "Senior Ao, it's not that I was careless. This little thing just happened to pass by me. I remember Senior Shui saying that although the 1,000-demon Holy Realm demon beasts aren't very powerful, they are extremely vigilant. If you provoke them, you will definitely attract the attention of other demon beasts. As such, I didn't dare to be too careless, so I used my magic power to restrain this little thing. In fact, the sound just now was also made by this little thing." Fellow Taoist Xian was a nascent soul stage grandmaster, so how could he be so careful with his words? However, in front of Ao Zhantian and Shui Mingzi, he had no choice but to lower his guard. This was because Ao Zhantian and Shui Mingzi had already broken through the nascent soul stage and reached the out-of-aperture stage. They had truly become Origin Chi grandmasters of the 5th level. In a mere 200 years, 2 late nascent soul stage Taoist sect cultivators had actually broken through the taboo of Confucian cultivation and reached the out-of-aperture stage in one go. This greatly shocked fellow Taoist Xian. This wasn't just a matter of personal strength, but also the strength of the forces behind them. Apart from shock, fellow Taoist Xian could only feel envy. Unfortunately, Ao Zhantian didn't pay any attention to fellow Taoist Xian's explanation. He frowned as he looked at the little beast in fellow Taoist Xian's hand and said impatiently, "You can't even control such a small demon beast? How am I supposed to reprimand you? Are you still a nascent soul stage cultivator? If you screw up the entire plan, don't blame me for being impolite to you." Back when Ao Zhantian was only a late nascent soul cultivator, he was already extremely arrogant. Now that he was an out-of-aperture supreme grandmaster on the hidden immortal continent, he was even more arrogant than before. Cultivator Xian was a nascent soul cultivator, but in his eyes, he was no different from an ordinary disciple. He didn't hold back at all when he scolded him. "Yes, Junior knows his mistake. I will definitely be more careful in the future." Fellow Taoist Xian lowered his head and muttered. Magic power flickered in his hand, and with a shwa, the little demon beast didn't even have time to cry out before it was crushed into meat paste. Chapter 43:30. Damn it! Without waiting for Cultivator Xian to raise his head, Shui Mingzi's expression changed and he angrily cursed, "Didn't this old man say it before? Unless absolutely necessary, don't kill any demon beasts." Cultivator Xian was slightly angered by the fact that he was being scolded by 2 out-of-body martial grandmasters. He almost blurted out, "Senior Shui, even if it's just an ordinary little demon beast, I won't bring about a calamity if I kill it, right?" How could Shui Mingzi be bothered to explain anything to him? Shui Mingzi made a hand seal and hit his nose with the back of his hand. After that, Shui Mingzi sniffled and his expression changed drastically. He shouted, "Go!" His body turned into a rainbow and without concealing himself, he rushed in the direction where the bat demons had flown to earlier. This. Ao Zhantian was also a bit confused. However, when he saw Shui Mingzi reveal himself, he hurriedly released his spiritual sense. Sure enough, the eyes of all the little demon beasts that had fled or fallen to the ground had turned crimson red. They rushed out from all directions and rushed toward the human cultivators like moths to a flame. Moreover, when these little demonic beasts scurried over, their mouths emitted squeaking sounds. Although these squeaking sounds were very soft, when there were so many of them, they formed a kind of loud sound that was like the roar of a mountain or a tsunami. This loud sound spread very far in the night sky. Damn it! Ao Zhantian cursed. What the hell is going on? Why did these little demon beasts suddenly go crazy? Even as he cursed, Ao Zhantian's body also transformed into a streak of light and rushed toward Shui Mingzi. Although he didn't know what was going on, Cultivator Xian knew that he had caused trouble by killing the little demon beast. He hurriedly shook his hand and threw the little demon beast's minced meat onto a huge tree. His body also transformed into a streak of light and chased after Shui Mingzi. But what this cultivator surnamed Xian didn't know was that the little demonic beast's flesh was somewhat strange. When he killed the demonic beast with a shake of his hand, a few strands of its blood seeped through his magic power and landed on his Taoist robe. Let's go, let's go. The group of nascent soul cultivators also didn't dare to tarry and flew into the distance. Not long after the human cultivator left, hundreds of small demonic beasts arrived first. They effortlessly discovered the corpses of the small demonic beasts killed by the cultivator surnamed Xian. Squeak squeak, squeak squeak. The small demonic beasts closest to the corpses let out hysterical screeches. Then, their entire bodies glowed with a blood-red color. Puff puff puff. A series of light-popping sounds, like beans being cooked, emerged one after another. Around these small demonic beasts, thumb-sized whirlpools emerged. These whirlpools sprayed out a thin mist of blood, which fused with the aura of the blood on the corpses of the small demonic beasts and spread in all directions. Woo! As the thin blood mist spread out, the power of the stars and moon descended from the starry sky onto their bodies. These several small demonic beasts suddenly flew up from the giant tree and chased after Shui Mingzi and the other humans. Just as these small demonic beasts left, the dozen or so small demonic beasts that were affected by the blood mist also flew up and chased after them. Behind these dozen or so small demonic beasts, the blood mist that had doubled in size once again spread out in all directions. In the time it took to finish a cup of tea, the blood mist had already covered several dozen kilometers of the mountain forest. The aura of the blood mist had also drifted far away with the night wind. In the air above the blood mist, several thousand small demonic beasts fearlessly chased after the human nascent soul cultivators who could kill them with a wave of their hand. What? What's going on? Although Ao Zhantian had flown far away, his spiritual sense had remained on the giant tree this entire time. He had clearly seen everything that had happened. He couldn't believe that the death of a small demonic beast would cause such a huge change. Sigh. At this point, Shui Mingzi could only sigh. He looked at Cultivator Xian and the others and explained, "Fellow Taoist Ao, these demonic beasts are called moth-gathering beasts. They are demonic beasts that I've only recently learned about. There were many moth-gathering beasts around Chongqing Mountain. Their divine arts weren't strong, but they were united. If one moth-gathering beast was attacked, all the moth-gathering beasts within a few miles or even dozens of miles would receive the news and attack together. What's most inconceivable is that when these moth-gathering beasts smell the blood of their own kind, they will immediately go berserk and their abilities will multiply. What's more, the moth-gathering beasts have the word moth-gathering beast in their name, which means that they're like moths that fly into a flame. Once these moth-gathering beasts go berserk, unless there's a special reason, they'll definitely chase after their prey with no regard for their lives. With that said, Shui Mingzi raised a hand and pointed at the shadows that were flying out from the darkness behind him. He smiled bitterly and said, "As for the rest, I don't think I need to explain further, do I?" Looking at the black shadows that were flying out like waves, the cultivator surnamed Xian was also helpless. He could only open his mouth again and say, "This junior really doesn't know, hee." Shui Mingzi smiled faintly and waved his hand. This matter isn't entirely fellow Daoist Xian Ping's fault. It's also this old man's fault. Although this old man said that we can't casually attack them, I didn't mention any specific taboos. These moth-gathering beasts look nothing more than ordinary cattle and sheep on the hidden immortal continent. Who would have thought that they would have such powerful natures? Yes, yes. The cultivator named Xian Ping's expression relaxed slightly. After a few words of agreement, he hurriedly asked, "Senior Shui, what should we do now?" This junior sees that senior already has a card up his sleeve. Xian Ping's words weren't without a hint of flattery, but Shui Mingzi was very pleased. He glanced at Ao Zhantian and the group of nascent soul cultivators and said with a smile, "Since all of you have taken a liking to this old man and fellow Daoist Ao has invited me with all his might, how could this old man not do his homework? This old man has been in the Thousand Demons sacred realm for over 200 years. Although I don't dare to say that I know the habits of the demon race like the back of my hand, I still have some understanding of them. Just now, all of you saw that although these moth-gathering beasts are arrogant, they are most afraid of the eagle bats. In other words, we just saw the demon race. As long as we get too close to the eagle bats, these moth-gathering beasts will definitely retreat. So that's how it is." Ao Zhantian came to a realization and nodded. "We'll have to trouble you, fellow Daoist." But after Xian Ping, another nascent soul mid-stage cultivator was rather puzzled. He asked, "This junior still has a question, but I don't know if I should ask it." Su Tingzi. Ao Zhantian glared at the cultivator and scolded, "If you have something to say, then say it. This is the Thousand Demons sacred realm, and there are many demon beasts and demon races all around us. Our situation is also very dangerous, so what's there to be afraid of?" "Yes, yes." Su Tingzi hurriedly said, "Senior Shui said that these moth-gathering beasts are most afraid of the eagle bats, but why do these moth-gathering beasts keep moving around the eagle bats? They should be far away from them." Su Tingzi hurriedly smiled at Shui Mingzi and said, "Senior Shui, I'm just a little confused. I don't have any other intentions." "Hee, it's fine." Shui Mingzi was constantly paying attention to the movements behind him as he flew. When he heard Su Tingzi's words, he hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Don't Confucian cultivators have a famous saying? What you know is what you know, and what you don't know is what you don't know. It's a pity that I can't give you a very satisfactory answer because I'm not a demon race cultivator, so I can't answer your question. However, don't the pigs, goats, geese, and other animals all fear the humans in the mortal world? Don't they all live beside humans every day? The eagle bats are demon race cultivators, and the moth-gathering beasts are merely demon beasts. That's all there is to it. Senior Shui is right." Su Tingzi was completely convinced. "I've overestimated the intelligence of the moth-gathering beasts." Ao Zhantian was getting a little impatient. He didn't dare to release his divine sense too much, and a strange light flashed through his eyes. "Fellow Daoist Shui, the eagle bats from before seem to be nearby. Why haven't we seen them yet? Moreover, too many of these moth-gathering beasts have already been alerted." Shui Mingzi was also helpless. He also wanted to escape the pursuit of the moth-gathering beasts as soon as possible. After all, a dozen or so human cultivators were nothing in this dark night, but hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of crazed moth-gathering beasts were a different story. Unfortunately, he had to bring these dozen or so nascent soul cultivators with him, so he couldn't use teleportation. Thus, Shui Mingzi pondered for a moment and said, "Fellow Taoists, using the eagle bats is merely a risky tactic. Those moth-gathering beasts are no ordinary demon race cultivators. If I don't control the scale well, I might end up in a predicament where I'm attacked from two directions. Therefore, if there are any changes later, you must remember the other thing that we discussed earlier." Right at this moment, before Shui Mingzi could finish speaking, a pitch-black shadow silently flew out from a hill several kilometers away. As soon as the shadow appeared, a faint fluctuation immediately disappeared into the void from where the shadow was, and the space around the shadow began to warp slightly. Shui Mingzi didn't release his divine sense, so he naturally didn't discover what was happening several kilometers away. However, he was a descendant of the demon race, and his bloodline had an innate instinct. As soon as the black shadow appeared, he immediately became vigilant. His explanation came to an abrupt halt, and he immediately raised his head to look in the direction of the black shadow. "Who's there?" Not only Shui Mingzi, but even Ao Zhantian also became vigilant. His expression suddenly froze, and he turned to look in the direction of the black shadow. The shock in his heart forced him to blurt out a warning. As for Xiaofan, he transformed into an ordinary boa dragon of the demon clan and flew towards Shui Mingzi and the others. However, after flying for about 1,000 kilometers, a powerful origin intent swept over from the peak of a mountain. When the Yuan Will landed on Xiaohua's body, a bloodthirsty aura immediately emerged from the Yuan Will. Xiaohua's brows slightly furrowed as he stopped and cast a sidelong glance at the mountain peak. Under the stars and moon, he saw a bird that was close to 100 feet in size spreading its wings. Pillars of light from the stars and moon continuously landed on its wings. Within the pillars of light, the ferocious bird's eyes were clearly visible. Chapter 43-31. Humph. Xiaohua snorted coldly and scanned the area with his divine sense. Buzz. Above the mountain peak, a huge divine sense came crashing down like a hammer. Not only did it seal the night sky, but it also scattered the light beam of the moon and stars. Caw. The ferocious bird turned pale with fright. It urged its demonic body, seemingly wanting to flee. Boom. A loud noise resounded. Dust and smoke suddenly rose from the mountain peak. Not only was the ferocious bird smashed down the cliff by the divine sense, even the summit of the mountain peak had collapsed by several tens of zhang due to Xiaohua's divine sense. Looking at a few feathers flickering with starlight fluttering in the night sky, Xiaohua's lips curled into a smile. He was about to move again. "Fellow Taoist." At that moment, Feng Wu's voice sounded. "Yuanya has something to talk to you about." "Yuanya?" Xiaohua was stunned for a moment before coming to a realization. When Xiaohua had sent the disciples back to the soaring Dragon Mountain range from the pure land of ultimate bliss, he had also asked Yuanya to lead the 3,000 disciples back. However, Yuanya had actually wanted to return to the Shenhua continent first. Xiaohua had not known what was going on and had hurriedly taken him back to the Shenhua continent, allowing the 3,000 disciples to follow Fujiwen and the others back first. After that, because of Lu Yi and Jianghong, Xiaohua was in a bad mood and forgot to send Yuanya out of the Shenhua continent. Since the Thunderbolt Immortal was building the teleportation array in the Western Paradise, no one told Xiaohua about the matters in the Shenhua continent. Xiaohua caused a ruckus in the Dragon Palace and rushed to the Thousand Demon Sacred Realm, sending all the disciples out. He only forgot about Yuanya on the Shenhua continent. Xiaohua looked around and teleported to the peak of the mountain. He took out the Kunlun mirror and released Yuanya from the light beam. Yuanya looked at the dragon-shaped demon in front of him in surprise and then looked at the Kunlun mirror in Xiaohua's hand. He bowed and said, "Disciple greets Uncle Master." Xiaohua didn't say anything. Under the moonlight, he carefully sized up this disciple in front of him. Yuanya was the first disciple he met after he got lost in the hidden immortal continent. He was also the one who had the most rough experience, especially Yuanya's heart. He was hurt by his parents when he was young, and then by Jia Wu. It could be said that in Yuanya's heart, the human race couldn't compare to the demon race, or even the demon race. Suddenly, Xiaohua wanted to go to the mystic jade dark forest where Yuanya came from and see if he could find his true origin. Martial uncle? Xiaohua was somewhat absent-minded. Yuanya didn't dare to get up. He hesitated for a moment before asking in a low voice, "Where is disciple's master?" N. Xiaohua responded. He put away the Kunlun mirror and the thousand illusion pearl and returned to his original appearance. He smiled and said, "Master is right here." "Disciple, what do you need?" "Master," disciple greets master. Seeing Xiaohua appear, Yuanya wasn't surprised. He bowed once again. His etiquette was very thorough. Although Yuanya's thoughts were pure, he also understood that his master's abilities were vast and he definitely couldn't measure them. It wouldn't be strange for him to transform into anything. However, after bowing, a hesitant expression appeared on Yuanya's face. "Oh. Previously, I had forgotten that you were on the Shenhua continent. Your disciples have already followed Fujiwen back to the soaring Dragon Mountain range. This place is already in the Thousand Demons sacred realm, you don't have to return." Xiaohua thought that Yuanya wanted to volunteer to return to the hidden immortal continent, so he hurriedly helped Yuanya up apologetically. However, the moment Xiaohua helped Yuanya up, Xiaohua suddenly froze. He looked at Yuanya with wide eyes and said in surprise, "That's not right." "Yeah. When have you been so polite to your master?" "Ha ha ha, so that's how it is." At this point, Xiaohua had already seen the expression on Yuanya's face. At this moment, after Xiaohua exposed him, a trace of embarrassment appeared on Yuanya's face. Thinking about how Yuanya wanted to return to the Shenhua continent after leaving the Shenhua continent, how could Xiaohua not know what Yuanya wanted to say to him? "Master." Yuanya was actually a little bashful and said in a low voice, "So you already know." Disciple knew that I couldn't hide it from master. "Yes, yes." Xiaohua's mood was really good. It was as if the stars in the sky were shining brightly. He nodded vigorously and said, "Master didn't know before, but now I know." "Tell me, who is she?" Master doesn't seem to have heard Jiang Hong and Chang Yuan mention it. "Yeah, you hit it so well. Not to mention master, even your uncle Master Lei Ting didn't know." Saying that, Xiaohua took out the Kunlun mirror again and prepared to invite Yuanya's lover out from the Shenhua continent. "Master." Yuanya replied in a low voice, "It's just a recent matter. Junior brother and junior sister, don't know, disciple, also don't know, so I want master to make a decision for disciple." Xiaohua smiled and pinched his chin as he looked at Yuanya, whose face was a little red and whose breathing was a little hurried. How could he not know that Yuanya, this 1,000-year-old iron tree, had already bloomed? His heart that was hurt by Jia Wu had already healed. Xiaohua sighed. "That day, master had said that he would find you a fairy maiden from the immortal palace, but who would have thought, you were so quick to act and actually found a soulmate in the fortune gate. It seems that master has broken his promise." "Master, is a fairy." Yuanya was anxious and actually misunderstood Xiaohua's meaning. He hurriedly replied. Xiaohua was dumbfounded and said in shock, You're talking about Yes." Yuanya saw Xiaohua so shocked and didn't know what happened. The embarrassment on his face immediately disappeared and he replied, it's Dai, ah. She said she's not a cultivator from the Shenhua continent, she's from the 10,000 demon realm, she's a fairy. Looking at Yuanya's anxious appearance, Xiaohua looked at the Kunlun mirror in his hand. As his fingers shook, the Kunlun mirror looked like an ordinary bronze mirror in Xiaohua's hand. The moonlight was like water, sprinkling on the surface of the mirror. Light and shadow flickered from time to time, making Xiaohua a little confused. Seeing Xiaohua frowning and not answering, Yuanya's heart tightened. He didn't dare to say anything, biting his lips and staring at the ground. Xiaohua's heart was really in a mess. The space was his biggest secret. In his space, Xiaohuang was the first to enter, and Dai, was the second. From the moment he saved Dai, from the Sky Patrol City, Xiaohua didn't intend to let Dai, know his secret, and also didn't intend to let Dai, know that he was the one who saved her. Therefore, after Dai's injuries were healed, Xiaohua placed a restriction in the space near Dai, to prevent Dai, from discovering anything from the space. Xiaohua was waiting for a suitable opportunity to throw Dai, out of the space, just like the rainbow-colored conch. Of course, this suitable place should be the Dawn Rain continent. However, before he could return to the Dawn Rain continent, Dai, actually became acquainted with Yuanya. Thinking of Dai's intelligence when she was a child, thinking of Dai, going through the yin and yang in his space, and then looking at the simple and honest disciple in front of him, Xiaohua didn't need to think to know what Dai had learned from Yuanya. He also knew how much Dai knew about him. The idea of killing Dai was something that Xiaohua had never thought of, even now, when his secret might be exposed. Xiaohua sighed and prepared to enter the space. He really didn't understand, how could Dai, who was in the restriction, see Yuanya. However, just as his mind was about to move, he smiled again. Yuanya said it clearly, but he only saw Dai, recently, and no one knew what happened in the space recently. The wind and thunder sources entered the space, causing the space to advance. It must be at this time that a crack appeared in his seal on the space, giving Dai, a chance to escape. AI. Xiaohua sighed, the Kunlun mirror in his hand stopped flipping, looked up at the full moon, and said after a while, fate. Wonderful. Xiaohua's thoughts were thousands of times, but at this time, he could only turn it into this sentence. Thinking about it, one was the monster clan of the 10,000 demon realm, the other was the wolf of the hidden immortal continent. The two were originally unrelated, but because of the existence of Xiaohua, the two were pulled together. If it wasn't fate, how could it be explained? And Xiaohua was really the Moon Lord once again. Master. Seeing Xiaohua sigh, Yuanya tentatively said, disciple, he. A smile appeared on Xiaohua's face, and he sat down cross-legged and asked, disciple, don't worry, Master will support any choice you make. Tell me, how did you meet Dai? Seeing Xiaohua's kind tone, Yuanya's heart was relieved. He sat opposite Xiaohua and said, when Master was in the great desolate continent, didn't you want to bestow the demonic spear to disciple? It was just that disciple was unable to control the demonic intent in the demonic spear, so Master didn't give the demonic spear to disciple. After disciple comprehended the demonic intent in the demonic spear, it was difficult for disciple to calm down, so disciple returned to the Shenhua continent and found a place to gain experience. Just when disciple flew to a barren place, a strange crack suddenly appeared in the air. That crack was very strange, and ordinary magical powers couldn't break it. Disciple used the Big Dipper magical fist to pass through by luck, and there, disciple saw a lake as quiet as a fairyland, and Dai, who was as white as snow, was flying by the lake. After Yuanya finished talking about the process of how he met Dai, Xiaohua secretly nodded. Just as Xiaohua had expected, the spatial anomaly had destroyed the restriction sealing Dai. However, Dai didn't escape from the restriction as Xiaohua had expected, and instead, she chose to stay by the lake. Yuan Ye's intrusion was purely coincidental, and this made Dai very happy. Yuan Ye's sincerity and innocence made Dai have a good impression of him. Dai tried to ask Yuan Ye about the Shenhua continent situation, and Yuan Ye didn't hide anything. He even told her about the Fortune Gate situation, as well as the conflict between the Lu family and the Yu family. Dai really didn't expect that there was such a wonderful world around her, and it was far from the barren desert she had imagined. Chapter 43-32. Dai naturally asked about Little Yellow and Little Black, but Yuan Ye didn't know much about them, so he didn't say much. Then, Yuan Ye accompanied Dai to cultivate by the lake. The following days were unforgettable for Yuan Ye. The lake was beautiful, birds were singing, flowers were fragrant, and beautiful women were accompanying him. Yuan Ye, who had been lonely for thousands of years, seemed to understand something, and Dai also saw warmth and love in Yuan Ye's eyes. Xiaofan, of course, didn't know about this. As soon as he returned to the Western Paradise, he dragged his disciples out of Shenhua continent and didn't care about Yuan Ye's location at all. Yuan Ye was erased from Dai's sight by Xiaofan. Seeing that he was about to leave Dai for the hidden immortal continent, Yuan Ye didn't know how long he would be gone. He wanted to go back to Shenhua continent to say goodbye to Dai. Although Dai was from the monster race, she was still a woman. When she saw Yuan Ye suddenly leave, she thought that he had met with an accident and was heartbroken. But later, after careful consideration, she felt that things were not so simple and became suspicious. When Yuan Ye appeared in front of Dai in a panic, Dai naturally asked him why he left. Yuan Ye was a very sincere person, and he had answered all of Dai's questions without holding anything back. However, this was only limited to Shenhua continent. He didn't say a word about Xiaohua or the Kunlun mirror. But this time, the disappearance put Yuan Ye in a difficult position. He didn't want to deceive Dai, and he didn't want to reveal the secret of the Kunlun wonderland before Xiaohua disagreed. Therefore, he answered honestly. He wanted to report to his master first before answering Dai. Dai was even more interesting. She had never asked Yuan Ye about his master's name, and when Yuan Ye mentioned Xiaohua earlier, he only said master. Only now did Dai realize something. She only asked Yuan Ye one question and didn't ask him about the reason for his disappearance. This question, of course, was Xiaohua's name. Disciple, you mean? Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and looked at Yuan Ye meaningfully. He asked, Dai only asked for master's name, and then didn't ask about the Fortune Gate anymore. She only taught you how to be filial in front of master, right? Yes. Yuan Ye was never one to hide anything, so he answered honestly. He. Xiaohua laughed. In fact, there was no need to ask more. Xiaohua, these two words were enough for Dai to understand everything. Xiaohua didn't know what Dai and the Empress had encountered in the Xiaoyu continent. However, Xiaohua knew that Dai definitely knew about Xiaohuang and him. Since Dai had already seen Xiaohuang on the Shenhua continent and heard his name now, how could Dai not know that he was the one who had rescued her? How could someone as smart as Dai interrogate the honest Yuan Ye? She just had to wait for him to break it down with her. As for Dai teaching Yuan Ye to be filial to him, it was definitely because she didn't want Yuan Ye to be neglected in the sect and thus attract his attention. Of course, Dai and Yuan Ye had only known each other for a short period of time. It was still too far away to talk about marriage. However, from Dai's narrow-mindedness, Xiaohua had already seen some shadows of Chang Yuan and Jiang Hong. Dai is from the demon race of the 10,000 demon realm. She is also a servant that the Empress values. There is no need to talk about her origin. Xiaohua thought to himself, just based on the fact that she had experienced the separation of yin and yang in this Zhao's space, her future advancement is definitely not comparable to ordinary demons. How can such a demon race with an immeasurable future be won over by others? Now that she can hit it off with Yuanya, it is both Yuanya's blessing and this Zhao's opportunity. How can Xiaohua give it up in vain? This Xiao was previously worried about the leakage of the space's secret. Now that this Xiao has the Kunlun mirror as a cover, why would I still worry about this? Moreover, this Xiao didn't dare to ask about the Empress of the 10,000 Demon Realm because I was afraid that I didn't have the strength and would cause more trouble. Now that this Xiao has the cultivation of the 9th level of essence power, I have reached the peak of the 3 continents and even the Xiaoyu continent. No matter what the Empress of the 10,000 Demon Realm encounters in the Xiaoyu continent, this Xiao should be qualified to participate. It seems that the heavens have arranged for me to meet Dai. Thinking of this, Xiaohua asked again, yeah, then the purpose of you looking for Master is to let Master explain to Dai. Yes. Yuanya nodded and said, without Master's consent, this disciple doesn't dare to tell Dai. Good. Xiaohua smiled and said, you did well. Master asks you, do you like Dai, very much? This. Yuanya's face was a little hot, he hesitated a little shyly and then nodded, yes, Master. Does she like you? Xiaohua asked. If it was someone else, they would have hesitated, but Yuanya answered without hesitation, yes. On the contrary, Xiaohua was a little hesitant. After a moment, he softly probed, this feeling, is it the same as Jiawu? It's somewhat similar, but also somewhat different. Yuanya still didn't hesitate and blurted out. He must have thought for a long time. Xiaohua wanted to ask again, but his lips moved a few times and he gave up. The so-called men, no matter how old they were, would be abnormally ignorant in front of the woman they liked. His feelings for Hongxia Fairy, Xue Xue, and Princess Xian were all tangled up. What qualifications did he have to teach Yuanya? Some things, it was better not to ask. Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, in the future, if Dai, asks you anything, you don't have to hide it from her. Yes, Master. Yuanya's answer was unchanged, but there was a hint of joy and relief in his tone. As he spoke, the Kunlun mirror in Xiaohua's hand vibrated, and Dai, was invited out from Shenhua continent. Dai, was naturally confused, but she already had a premonition. As soon as the shackles on her body were released, she immediately urged her demonic power to be on guard. When she saw Yuanya's concerned gaze and Xiaohua's unchanging appearance, an indescribable sadness rose from the bottom of her heart. She didn't hesitate and didn't doubt Xiaohua's strength. She immediately knelt on the ground and kowtowed, saying, Spiritual Master Xiao, please go and save my lady. Yuanya was stunned. He looked at Dai, in disbelief and then at his master. It was obvious that the fairy in his heart knew his master, and his master didn't mention this just now. Xiaohua raised his hand slightly and said, Dai, get up. No, if spiritual master doesn't save my lady, Dai won't get up for the rest of my life. Dai knew that her lady was indebted to Xiaohua, and she had seen Xiaohua since she was young. Now that Yuanya was by her side, she simply acted coquettishly. Xiaohua still helped Dai up. Even if Dai struggled to resist, she still stood up in front of an irresistible force like the power of heaven and earth. Dai, Xiaohua smiled bitterly and raised his hand to point around, it's not that I don't want to save her lady. If I didn't want to save her, I wouldn't have saved you years ago. But look at where we are. When I was in Xiaoyu continent, I didn't have the ability to save her. But now, I have the ability, but I can't return to Xiaoyu continent. 10,000 Demon Realm? Dai, slightly released her Yuan Shen and looked around. She immediately cried out involuntarily, but a moment later she came to her senses, no, this is not the 10,000 demon realm. Where is this? It doesn't matter where this is, the important thing is. I can't find the way back to Xiaoyu continent. I can't return to Xiaoyu continent. Xiao Hua replied, so, even if I know that something big has happened to her lady, I'm afraid I can't save her. Sigh. Dai naturally knows Xiao Hua's difficulties. She lets out a long sigh and says with tears in her eyes, pitiful Nyang Nyang. Even if she's really in the Dawn Rain continent right now, in that great array, she won't be able to survive these thousands of years. Xiao Hua opened his mouth and wanted to explain the problem of time, but he hesitated. Instead of giving Dai hope, it was better to let her be at a loss. Xiao Hua understood the principle that the greater the expectation, the greater the disappointment. Tell me about her lady. Xiao Hua was indeed very concerned about what happened to her lady and couldn't help but ask. Sigh, it's been more than 7,000 years. At this time, Dai-er's heart was cold and she was unwilling to mention it again. Dai-er, if you don't want to say it, then don't say it. Yuanya said with some heartache, Master won't force you. Dai-er smiled and nodded at Yuanya, I know. In fact, Daoist Xiao can save Dai-er is already very happy. Now that I have met you, Dai-er doesn't know how to thank the heavens. Now, Dai only has one wish, and that is to complete her lady's last wish. How could there be secrets in a woman's mouth? Especially when one was a man she had a good impression of, and the other was an elder who had helped her and had the ability to help her. Without waiting for Xiao Hua to say anything more, Dai-er told him about how she and her lady were plotted against by Dongshan Yi. So that's how it is. After listening to the end, Xiao Hua understood. Dai-er escaped from Dongshan Yi's hands, but after all, she was seriously injured and fell into the hands of the human race. She was brought to Sentry City to be auctioned. If she hadn't met him, she would have died long ago. Now Dai-er has no one to rely on, Daoist Master is in charge. Dai-er bowed again and said while crying, if Daoist Master has a chance, please take Dai-er back to the 10,000 demon realm so that Dai-er can pass on her lady's message. Dai-er was very obedient and didn't mention her lady's favor to Xiao Hua, only saying please. How could Xiao Hua not understand? He sighed in his heart at Dai-er's cleverness and nodded again, don't worry, I will never forget the grace of her lady. As long as there is a chance, I will definitely fulfill your wish. Speaking of this, Xiao Hua glanced at the surprised Yuanya and said, even if I can't fulfill it, I will let my disciple fulfill it on my behalf. Chapter 43-33. Thank you, Spiritual Master. Dai thanked him shyly. However, after a few breaths, Dai-er suddenly understood Xiao Hua's meaning. She raised her head in disbelief and shouted, Spiritual Master means, there is no other meaning. Xiao Hua replied faintly, it's just that from the 3 continents to the 10,000 demon realm, this Xiao doesn't know where the space meridian is. This Xiao doesn't have much time to find it. This junior also doesn't know the space meridian from the Dawn Rain continent to the 10,000 demon realm. Dai-er suppressed the indescribable excitement in her heart. She called herself a junior and whispered, but the thing that Empress gave this junior, must have something related to this. Good. Xiao Hua nodded, this matter will be handed over to you and Ya. My disciple is slow-witted and his cultivation is not good. I'm afraid he won't be able to contribute much to Empress. Not at all. Dai-er was still a little naive and blurted out, Yuanya's mind is pure and his cultivation is excellent. After saying these 2 sentences, Dai-er immediately woke up and lowered her voice a lot, with his help, this junior will be a lot more relieved, that's good. Xiao Hua smiled slightly and stretched out his hand. The bone dragon demon spear appeared in his hand. As soon as the demon spear appeared, a vision appeared immediately. Not to mention the lingering demon chi, just the bone dragon on the demon spear made Dai turn pale with fright. Disciple. Xiaohua handed the bone spear to Yuanya and said, "This thing is a demon spear. It contains the remnant soul of an ancient demon dragon. Ordinary demons don't dare to use it. Although Master has promised you before that I will give it to you, why didn't I dare to give it to you? On one hand, your heart force is still unable to control the demon soul. On the other hand, your heart is still unable to control itself. Now that Master has seen Dai, I know that your heart is close to perfection. This demon spear should be given to you." However, Master still says the same thing. The spear is a demon spear, but the person is a righteous person. The demon spear is a murderous weapon in the hands of the demon race, but in the hands of a righteous person, it is a sharp weapon that upholds the righteousness of the world. Yuanya looked at the demonic spear in front of him and solemnly accepted it. Seeing the demonic energy enter his body, Yuanya's body flashed with red light. His eyes were filled with determination as he replied, "Yes, Master, this disciple understands." Xiaohua looked at Dai's rather worried expression and said with a smile, "Among this Zhao's few disciples, I'm afraid that Horizon's cultivation is the lowest. And this demonic spear is the most powerful magic treasure that I have bestowed upon my disciple. However, he was the most suitable person to use magic artifacts. Don't worry, as long as you can use the devil spear freely, killing Dongshan Yi and avenging the Empress will be a piece of cake." Dai was from the flying feather upper race of the 10,000 demon realm. How could she not see the power of the demonic spear? Her heart was filled with admiration. Not to mention the Dawn Rain continent, even in the 10,000 demon realm, how many people could control the demonic spear? Now that Yuanya could use the devil spear, killing Dongshan Yi would be a piece of cake, and dominating the 10,000 demon realm wouldn't be too difficult, right? But, could Yuanya control such a demonic spear? Would she be able to protect him? For a moment, Dai was a little absent-minded, but after a few breaths, eagerness appeared in her eyes again. She respectfully kowtowed and said, "Thank you, spiritual master, get up." Dai didn't say much, but Xiaohua heard a lot of meaning. He helped Dai up and revealed the Kunlun mirror in his hand. "This Xiao won't say anything unnecessary. This is the treasure that I saved you from before. There is a Kunlun wonderland inside, which is the Shenhua continent that Yuanya mentioned. You can accompany Yuanya back and cultivate well. I'll leave the matter of avenging the Empress to you." Kunlun wonderland? Kunlun mirror? Dai couldn't help but exclaim, "Spiritual master actually has such a treasure, no wonder." Xiaohua's heart moved, and he asked curiously, "Could it be that the Kunlun mirror is also famous in the 10,000 demon realm?" "Yes." Dai nodded and said, "This junior heard the Empress mention the treasures of several realms, and this Kunlun mirror is one of them." Xiaohua wanted to ask what the treasures the Empress had mentioned were, but he was suddenly shocked and hurriedly released his divine sense. After he saw the situation in the distance clearly, he unconsciously stood up from the mountain peak and asked curiously, "It's only been a short while, how could such a big mess be stirred up? What's wrong, spiritual master?" Dai was also stunned and wanted to release her divine sense. Xiaohua stopped her and said, "This has nothing to do with you. You don't have to get involved, go back and cultivate first." "Yes, master." Yuanya answered honestly and said to Dai, "Master wants to take us into the Kunlun wonderland, don't resist." Dai smiled sweetly and replied, "Yes, I know." Xiaohua shook the Kunlun mirror, and his divine sense swept the two into the Shenhua continent. The Kunlun mirror in his hand shook and was about to be put into the space. After thinking for a while, he pulled the black bear, white lion, and golden eagle out of the space and whispered a few instructions. The three demons didn't dare to delay and hurriedly left. At this time, Xiaohua put the 1,000 illusion pearl in his mouth again. After the body of the python dragon appeared, clouds and mist appeared around his body and hurriedly flew forward. Shui Mingzi and the others noticed something strange and hurriedly looked up. Pa, pa, pa. Just like before, a series of small explosions appeared in the void around them. Obviously, in just a few breaths, the fluctuations emitted by the black shadow had swept across a distance of several miles and landed where they were. Cough cough. The sound of old man Ruotong coughing sounded once again. From the source of the sound, an eagle bat that was several hundred feet in size flew across the night sky like a ghost and quietly appeared in the vision of Shui Mingzi and the others. Roar, roar, roar. In the wake of the eagle bat's roar, fist-sized vortexes appeared out of thin air. Just as these vortexes appeared, countless thumb-sized pillars of starlight and moonlight blasted into them, creating a strange sound like the howling of the wind. The space around Shui Mingzi and the others was like a huge rock that was filled with holes in the wind. Quick! Shui Mingzi was shocked at first, but then he was overjoyed. He waved his hand and said, "We've already attracted the eagle bat. Quickly, fly back and lure the eagle bat to force the gathering moth beast to retreat. Then, we can escape." Diverting trouble was naturally the human race's specialty. Without waiting for Shui Mingzi to say anything, Ao Zhantian pointed at Xian Ping and Su Tingzi and said, "According to the previous plan, the two of you will lead 4 cultivators each. Fellow Daoist Shui and I will lead 5 each. We'll lure the eagle bat to fight the gathering moth beast and then take advantage of the chaos to escape, yes." Xian Ping and Su Tingzi nodded without hesitation. Their bodies moved, and they turned around to charge at the gathering moth beast that was chasing after them like a flash flood. 8 of the dozen or so cultivators also arrived like the wind. Their bodies flashed with brilliance as they prepared to face the attack. Remember. Seeing the cultivators activate their magic power, Shui Mingzi felt an indescribable shock in his heart. He couldn't help but transmit his voice again, "Don't attack recklessly. We'll prioritize escaping. As long as the gathering moth beast stops chasing us, we'll leave immediately." Fuck. Ao Zhantian let out a strange cry, and his figure also rushed in another direction. He even said, "This daddy here is also a great master of the 5th level of elemental energy. Why do I feel like a grandson here? Why don't we just fly away? Why do we have to be so cautious?" Hee, as the saying goes, even a powerful dragon can't suppress a local snake. Shui Mingzi's figure also flew in another direction. He chuckled and said, "Although fellow Daoist Ao is a descendant of the dragon tribe, it's better to keep a low profile in the territory of the demonic beast tribe. If we just fly away, these gathering moth beasts definitely won't be able to catch us. However, if more and more gathering moth beasts appear, we'll attract the attention of other demonic beasts. We'll encounter even more difficulties in the future." Boom! 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 Shui Mingzi's voice was quickly drowned out by the sounds of explosions. The whirlpool that was several hundred feet wide suddenly expanded, and like a hurricane, it covered an area of several dozen miles. Wherever the ripples passed, not only did the giant trees turn into dust, even the surface of the mountain rocks were shattered. Dust filled the air, and the ripples also landed around the dozen or so cultivators. Ao Zhantian and the others had already activated their abilities. Wherever the ripples passed, the power of the stars and moon would explode like jade talismans, causing the light around Ao Zhantian and the others to flicker like candles in the wind. Good heavens! Ao Zhantian naturally didn't care about the attacks of the flying eagles. He let out an exaggerated cry as he activated his magic power. A faint layer of light around his body suddenly expanded like a thin layer of mist. This wasn't even a domain yet, and it completely blocked the ripples several feet away. In the distance, Shui Mingzi looked thoughtfully at the dragon-shaped light around Ao Zhantian's body. The corners of his lips curled up slightly as he raised his left hand and made a strange hand seal. A layer of ripples appeared out of thin air. When the ripples landed on the ripples, they only managed to shatter the surface layer of the ripples. As for the other nascent soul cultivators like Su Tingzi and Xian Ping, even though they didn't dodge as easily as Shui Mingzi and the others, it wasn't too difficult for them to block the ripples. Slap 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 slap. Following the shattering of the giant tree beneath everyone, the power of the ripples was greatly diminished. Even so, the sound of moth-gathering beasts falling to the ground could still be heard in the distance. Shui Mingzi was right, the flying eagles were indeed the nemesis of the moth-gathering beasts. However, there was still some distance between them and the moth-gathering beasts. These red-eyed, frenzied moth-gathering beasts had no idea that the flying eagles had appeared and that they had fallen into the trap of a dozen or so humans. Cough, cough, cough. Seeing that its attack was ineffective and that the dozen or so humans who were emitting strange auras were still fleeing, the eagle bat was very embarrassed and angry. Its monster body, which was hundreds of feet in size, spread its wings and flew across the night sky. After leaving a beautiful and mournful shadow in the night sky, it let out a sound that was several times louder than before. Puff 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 puff. This time, the direction of the ripples was even clearer. The ripples fell into the air and spread in the direction that Shui Mingzi and the others were fleeing. Chapter 43-34. Whoa! The space within a few kilometers began to rumble as tornadoes appeared. These tornadoes crushed the giant trees into dust, and even the shadows under the moonlight were somewhat distorted. The powerful ripples first rushed toward a nascent soul cultivator behind Su Tingzi. That nascent soul cultivator calmly formed a seal, and the protective light around him produced strands of spiral-like crystal threads. These crystal threads intertwined around the cultivator's body, creating a net that was even denser than normal. The ripples only dimmed the light, but they couldn't shake the net at all. However, it was also at this moment that the ripples swept past the cultivator's head, and 3 to 5 strange demonic characters suddenly appeared in the light. The demonic characters crashed into the cultivator's protective light, and a dong 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 sound rang out like a golden bell. Hiss! The nascent soul cultivator was caught off guard, and he sucked in a breath of cold air. His Naiwan palace shook violently, and he couldn't maintain his balance. He fell rapidly downward. Ouch! Just as the nascent soul cultivator fell, Su Tingzi and the others were also affected, and they all fell. However, it only lasted for a short while before the group of cultivators once again activated their secret techniques to stabilize their bodies. However, when they felt the tremors in their Naiwan palace, their originally confident faces turned serious once again. After all, the hawk bats were good at sound attacks, which was the weakness of normal human cultivators, especially when it came to attacking the Naiwan palace's divine sense. Quick! Su Tingzi felt a slight dizziness in his head, and he couldn't calm down for a long time. He hurriedly urged, "Let's lure the hawk bats to the moth-gathering beast, fellow Taoist." The nascent soul cultivator who was attacked just now rushed to Su Tingzi's side and transmitted his voice. "This is just a hawk bat, oh? Fellow Taoist Pahong, what did you say?" Su Tingzi was slightly taken aback, and he turned his head to ask. "Fellow Taoist, you can't hear I's voice transmission?" The cultivator named Pahong was stunned. He opened his mouth to transmit his voice, but he suddenly thought of something and hurriedly spoke. Su Tingzi's pupils shrank, and he nodded. "That's right. When you were transmitting your voice just now, I only felt an ethereal voice. Damn it, the demons of the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm are really weird." Pahong cursed. No wonder our Taoist cultivators would rather be bullied by Confucian cultivators on the hidden immortal continent than come to the Thousand Beasts Sacred Realm. This is the path of death for us Tao sect cultivators. Even if it's a dead end, I'm willing to take it for Taoist Master Xiao. A trace of determination flashed through Su Tingzi's eyes, and then he asked, "Oh, what did you want to say to I?" "Hee, it's nothing." Since he couldn't use voice transmissions, Pahong looked at the cultivators in the distance who were also acting strangely. He lowered his voice and said, "I just thought that since there's only one eagle bat behind us, as long as we can put some distance between us and let Senior Ao and Senior Shui lure the eagle bat to the front of the moth-gathering beast." Clap clap clap. Just as Pahong finished his sentence, more and more gathering moth beasts were killed by the shockwaves. Hee, Senior Shui's plan is indeed effective. We just need to hold on for a little longer. Su Tingzi naturally couldn't express his opinion on Pahong's words, and he only responded vaguely. However, before Su Tingzi could finish his sentence, several more coughs were heard from behind the crowd. Pahong was stunned and quickly turned his head to look. He saw that in the night sky, there were a few black figures that were dozens of feet in size. They had already started to attack like the eagle bat earlier. One of them was only a few miles away from them. "Damn it, I really jinxed it," Pahong said in a self-mocking tone. "I just said one eagle bat, and now several of them came. If I said 10, would 100 of them come?" Hee. Su Tingzi laughed and said, "If you had the ability to make prophecies come true, we wouldn't have to run so far away. You just need to stay in the hidden immortal continent and give some pointers." Unfortunately, Su Tingzi's laughter was still echoing in the night sky. In the night sky several kilometers away, cough, cough, cough. Sounds kept coming. It was as if countless old men couldn't fall asleep at night and were coughing uncontrollably as they tossed and turned in bed. "Damn it!" Su Tingzi's smile froze on his face, and he hurriedly released his divine sense. However, wherever his divine sense scanned, the entire night sky was like a ravine, and the shockwaves were like mountains. His divine sense couldn't pass through at all, so how could he see the situation in the distance? As Su Tingzi cursed in his heart, he instantly understood Shui Mingzi's painstaking efforts. Although the gathering moth beasts were insignificant, the demons they attracted weren't easy to deal with. "Let's go." Su Tingzi didn't have time to check how many eagles were behind him. He waved his hand, and without any hesitation, he charged towards the incoming gathering moth beasts. At the same time, Su Tingzi opened his mouth, and the earthy yellow drumstick flew out again. However, just as this Dharma treasure landed in the sky, Su Tingzi immediately remembered Shui Mingzi's warning. He sucked in his mouth, and the Dharma treasure was put away again. Clap clap clap. Actually, Su Tingzi did not even need to do anything. Wherever the eagle bats waved past, no matter how many moth-gathering beasts there were, regardless of whether they had gone mad or not, they all fell from the sky without any resistance. Su Tingzi gradually approached the gathering moth beasts with Pahong and the others. Once there was an opening, they would leave this dangerous place. Su Tingzi and the others naturally had a good plan. After all, the gathering moth beasts in front of them were too weak. No matter how many eagles there were behind them, as long as they charged into the gathering moth beasts, they could easily escape. However, at this moment, Shui Mingzi and Ao Zhantian's expressions changed. Su Tingzi and the others' divine sense was blocked by the shockwaves from the gathering moth beasts, and they couldn't see everything. Shui Mingzi was able to determine the number of gathering moth beasts just from the shockwaves. Ao Zhantian even used the secret technique of the dragon clan's descendants to see the situation behind him clearly. The development of the situation was far beyond Shui Mingzi and the others' expectations. At this moment, dozens of gathering moth beasts had already gathered in the night sky, and there was an endless stream of gathering moth beasts flying out from the hills behind them. Shui Mingzi and the others could only break through the frenzied gathering moth beasts if they wanted to. Fellow Taoist Ao. Shui Mingzi hurriedly transmitted his voice. Although his voice was faint, it could still be heard clearly. "We seem to have fallen into a predicament. If we want to break through now, it might be a little troublesome. No worries. Ao Zhantian casually replied. He raised his hand proudly, as if he was about to take out some kind of magic treasure. Shui Mingzi hurriedly called out, "Fellow Taoist Ao, please don't kill any more gathering moth beasts. These gathering moth beasts are a little strange today." Ao Zhantian frowned, but he didn't mind. He transmitted his voice, "This old man understands. Inform the other cultivators to act according to the situation. Let's leave this place first." "All right." Shui Mingzi hurriedly replied. He transmitted his voice to Su Tingzi and Xian Ping respectively. Woo-woo. However, at this moment, even more shockwaves surged forth like raging waves. The tranquility of the night sky was completely shattered, and tornadoes began to surge between the mountain peaks several hundred kilometers away. It was as if a storm was brewing. "All of you, follow this old man and leave first." Ao Zhantian heard Shui Mingzi's voice transmission and a brilliant light erupted from his body. A layer of faintly discernible dragon figure emerged from the light, and a powerful aura also emanated from it. Yes, this junior understands. The 5 nascent soul cultivators were naturally no weaklings. The true essence within their bodies flowed rapidly under the urging of their nascent souls. Roar. Ao Zhantian opened his mouth and let out a furious roar. His body flew out like a dragon, and a long streak of light appeared in the night sky. The other 5 nascent soul cultivators also transformed into streaks of light and followed behind him. "Fellow Taoist Ao, why are you like this?" Shui Mingzi couldn't help but be shocked. Just as he was about to transmit his voice to ask where Ao Zhantian had gone, he saw that Ao Zhantian had already flown to the center of the gathering moth beasts. Shui Mingzi could only sigh and say to the people behind him, "Let's go, there's no need for you to hide anything anymore." Since there was no need to hide anything, the nascent soul cultivators immediately unleashed their abilities and flew into the sky. Huh! At the sight of the dozen or so 4th grade essence Qi human cultivators, the hawk bat that had attacked first immediately let out a cry of surprise. Its body stopped in mid-air, and its meaty wings also stopped flapping. A series of feather-like spikes appeared on the back of its wings, and they trembled slightly. The hawk bat's lifeless eyes flickered, and a grayish-white color flashed from within. It turned around and called out to the dozens of hawks behind it, "Boy, who was the one who discovered the abnormality first?" Reporting to the mountain patrol, it was this lowly one. The hawk bat that had flown out from the left said in a panicked voice, "This lowly one had just returned from patrolling the Di Luo area when I heard some strange movements in the illuminating forest. After investigating, I discovered the aura of humans. This lowly one knew that he was no match for them, so he didn't dare to disturb them." "Damn it!" The mountain patrol cursed angrily. "Hurry and report this to the mountain lord. These human cultivators are not something that we can fight against. If they escape, I'm afraid that they'll affect the mountain lord's plans." But the hawk bat turned to the direction that Shui Mingzi and the others had flown off in. Its mouth and nose twitched for a moment, and it said with some confusion, "These humans have already flown far away, hee. If this was a normal day, we naturally wouldn't be able to catch up to them." The mountain patroller raised his head to look at the sky. His lifeless eyes stared at the moon in the sky. His mouth and nose twitched a few times at the blood that was spreading through the mountain forest. Then, he grinned viciously and said indifferently, "But tonight is the night when the moths gather to mate. The blood of the female moth-gathering beasts is the medicine that stimulates the male moth-gathering beasts. These human cultivators have caused such a great commotion. They must have killed the male and female moth-gathering beasts. Moth-gathering beasts may be weak, but when a male moth-gathering beast goes berserk, even we have to avoid them." Yes. The hawk bat didn't dare to say anything else. Its body glided and it landed on a distant hill. Chapter 43-35. Boys. The mountain patrol envoy let out a loud roar, and the strange demon language turned into a wave that reverberated within a radius of 10 kilometers. Hurry up and focus. Once we kill these humans, I'll let you have a taste of fresh human blood. Fuck, after tasting the blood essence of a few humans, I'm dying for it. At this moment, from the distant hills, and even from the nearby forest, there were more than a few hundred eagles and bats flying out. There were probably more than 1,000 of them. When these eagles and bats heard the mountain patrol envoy's command, they all responded in unison. Bursts of explosive sounds resembled the sound of war drums as they charged in the direction where Shui Mingzi and the others had disappeared. The strangest thing was that their bodies were surrounded by waves of energy that blocked the divine sense of the humans. If it weren't for the fact that they couldn't see them with their naked eyes, they wouldn't have been able to see them at all. How could Shui Mingzi and the others know that they had encountered a difficult problem? Each of them activated their bodies and calmly looked down at the gathering moth beasts that were frantically trying to attack them. A sense of pride involuntarily rose from the bottom of their hearts. Apart from Shui Mingzi, all the cultivators felt that their previous cautiousness was laughable. Of course, Shui Mingzi didn't place these gathering moth beasts in his eyes. He only released his divine sense and looked forward to avoid attracting even more powerful demons. Roar. Just as Ao Zhantian and the others passed through the center of the gathering moth beasts, a series of hysterical roars rang out from within the gathering moth beasts. The 100 or so gathering moth beasts closest to Ao Zhantian and the others suddenly leaped out from the gathering moth beasts and leaped high into the air. Pung pung pung. A series of explosions rang out at the same time, and the 100 or so gathering moth beasts turned into a bloody mist almost at the same time. Su Tingzi was slightly stunned. He looked down at his feet in disbelief and said in a low voice, "Fuck, what's wrong with these demonic beasts? Didn't fellow Daoist Xian just kill a gathering moth beast? Is there a need to be so aggressive? She actually self-destructed 100 or so gathering moth beasts. Are we going to be blamed for this? Oh." Su Tingzi suddenly realized something and cried out in alarm, "Oh no, could it be that fellow Daoist Xian just killed a beast king? If that's the case, then we'll be in big trouble." Bang! 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 Before Su Tingzi could finish his sentence, another 100 or so moth-gathering beasts leaped into the air and turned into blood once again. A thick smell of blood filled the air. Boom boom boom. The power of hundreds of stars and moons fell from the sky and hit the blood. The blood turned into countless tiny stars and fell everywhere. Roar roar. The blood-colored stars seeped into the bodies of the moth-gathering beasts. Many of the moth-gathering beasts that weren't flying very high suddenly roared. Strange blood-colored shadows appeared around their bodies, and their bodies seemed to have been flattened. Puff puff puff. Soft sounds of the blood shadows colliding rang out. Hundreds or even thousands of gathering moth beasts actually condensed together in a few breaths' time. Then, with a loud rumble, they charged up from a low altitude. When another pillar of light from the stars and the moon landed on this blood shadow, a blood shadow that was several hundred feet in size appeared in mid-air. The strange thing was that this huge blood shadow was completely different from the gathering moth beast. At first glance, it looked somewhat similar to an eagle bat. Strange. Strange. Even Shui Mingzi was perplexed, let alone Ao Zhantian. However, in the blink of an eye, Shui Mingzi understood why the gathering moth beasts were able to condense the blood shadow into an eagle bat. He couldn't help but smack his forehead with a smile. Fuck, in the eyes of the gathering moth beasts, the most powerful demonic beast in this world is the eagle bat. If they want to transform into an eagle bat, then their ultimate goal is to transform into an eagle bat. Isn't this what people call a frog at the bottom of a well? Shui Mingzi's smile didn't fade. All of a sudden, a strange force emerged from the blood mist beneath their feet. It was like a huge palm that grabbed at everyone. Oh! Shui Mingzi was startled. He quickly swept his divine sense behind him. Sure enough, the gathering moth beasts that had condensed into the shape of an eagle bat were also emitting a goo-goo sound. This sound reverberated through the night sky and instantly attracted the blood mist. Humph! Xian Ping, who was flying to Shui Mingzi's right, harumphed coldly at the sight of the force emerging from the blood mist. He waved his sleeves and a powerful gust of wind appeared out of thin air, whistling through the air and crashing into the force. Boom! A loud explosion erupted. The gust of wind passed through the force and even the blood mist before striking the huge trees and rocks beneath the blood mist. All of the trees and rocks within a radius of several thousand feet were reduced to dust by Xian Ping. However, what puzzled Xian Ping was that the force that had been pierced through by the gust of wind was completely unaffected. It continued to pounce toward him. Furthermore, as the force drew closer, Xian Ping felt the blood vessels in his body tighten. The blood essence within his body was about to rush out uncontrollably. Not good. Xian Ping was greatly alarmed. How could he still be concerned about using his magic power to escape? He hurriedly stopped and activated a mystic technique in an attempt to control his blood essence. However, as soon as he activated the mystic technique, his blood essence seemed to be boiling. It began to circulate wildly within his body without Xian Ping's control. This is the power of the bloodline? Ao Zhantian was a descendant of the dragon tribe, so he had the true blood of the dragon bloodline in his body. Under the force of the force, his true blood Dharma idol also began to surge, almost surging out of his body. Ao Zhantian hurriedly stabilized his Dharma idol and cried out in shock, "How does this lowly little demonic beast know how to use the power of the bloodline?" No one could answer Ao Zhantian's shock because the power of the bloodline was still a little weak at the beginning. However, as it enveloped everyone, an unending stream of force gushed out of the blood mist like a torrential flood. Damn it! Su Tingzi was also somewhat unable to control his own bloodline. He cursed angrily and slapped the top of his head. A ray of earthy yellow light surged out, and a small drumstick appeared. Su Tingzi pointed with his finger, and the drumstick transformed into a large hand, protecting his body. However, the calmness on Su Tingzi's face only lasted for a moment. He slapped the top of his head again, and another ray of earthy yellow light shot out. As Su Tingzi formed a hand seal, the hand of a nascent soul fell from the sky and sealed the surroundings. Phew! Su Tingzi let out a long sigh when he sensed that the power of the bloodline had weakened. Then, he activated his magic power again without hesitation. Unexpectedly, Su Tingzi's body indeed flew out after activating his magic power. However, the power of the bloodline had increased by several times. Even a nascent soul cultivator like Su Tingzi's body was covered in blood spots. If he continued to move recklessly, his blood essence would seep out. Su Tingzi was dumbfounded. He hurriedly suppressed his body, not daring to activate too much of his true essence. He looked at the other 4 cultivators beside Su Tingzi. They were also in an awkward position, unable to advance or retreat. Gao Fei. Su Tingzi's thoughts raced, and he couldn't help but look up at the sky. However, this thought was forcefully suppressed by Su Tingzi. Shui Mingzi had said very clearly that in the thousand-beast sacred realm, very few demon cultivators would fly high in the sky unless they had great abilities. This was because the demon race was cruel and unruly by nature. They would attack anyone who displeased them. Flying high in the sky would easily be seen as a provocation by the demon race. Not to mention, it was currently nighttime, and the power of the moon and stars was the densest. Countless demon cultivators were absorbing the moonlight to cultivate. Flying high in the sky was no different from seeking death. Gao Fei, hurry up and break free from the bloodline's control. At this moment, Ao Zhantian no longer cared about hiding anything. He raised his hand and slapped the top of his head. Boom! A clear sound rang out, and a crimson dragon blood body flew out from his body. The moment the dragon blood body appeared, it immediately raised its head and let out a long roar. The entire dragon body swayed and dispersed the bloodline power of the gathering moth beasts. Su Tingzi and the others didn't dare to fly too high, but after hearing Ao Zhantian's words and witnessing the dragon blood spell body shatter the bloodline power, they didn't hesitate any longer and hurriedly rushed into the starry sky. Fellow Taoists, split up. There's no need to fly too high. Fellow Taoist Ao, this old man will lend you a hand. Seeing that Ao Zhantian had even unleashed his dragon blood body, Shui Mingzi also shouted with all his might. He rubbed his hands together, and strands of crystalline light as thin as hair fell into the void. Then, layers of dual-colored water light flashed in the air within a dozen kilometers. Not only did the water light wash away the blood mist, it also killed many of the gathering moth beasts. In fact, more than half of the several thousand feet long blood shadow was also killed by the water light. Many thanks, fellow Taoist Shui. Ao Zhantian expressed his gratitude, and the dragon blood body proudly pounced toward the blood shadow again. It opened its mouth, and the remaining blood shadow was actually riddled with holes by the dragon blood body. The gathering moth beasts could no longer hold on. PFFF PFFF PFFF. The blood tentacles between them were forced apart, and the gathering moth beasts fell from the sky. Huh. Ao Zhantian laughed loudly. So it's just a paper tiger. You really gave me a fright just now. Shui Mingzi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He and Ao Zhantian were both 5th grade origin power grandmasters, and Ao Zhantian had to unleash his dragon blood body in order to defeat low-grade demonic beasts like the gathering moth beasts. If word of this got out, people would laugh until their teeth fell out. However, what else could Shui Mingzi say? He hurriedly urged, fellow Taoist Ao, don't be careless. Although these gathering moth beasts are weak, they know the power of bloodlines. This is too dangerous for us human cultivators. It's better for us to retreat first. After we dodge this wave of small beasts, we'll deal with them. Caw caw. At this moment, a hoarse, owl-like voice came from the sky above Shui Mingzi's head. It was speaking the somewhat obscure language of the hidden immortal continent. Humans, with just the few of you, you dare to have designs on my Yizhao Ridge? You must be tired of living. How could this be? Shui Mingzi was truly shocked. He had already released his divine sense, but who would have thought that there would still be a demonic beast that could avoid his divine sense and attack him? When he looked up and understood what was going on, he couldn't help but grumble inwardly. In the night sky, an eagle bat that was a few hundred feet in size spread its wings, blocking the starlight and the night sky nearby. Except for the lack of blood-red light around it, this eagle bat looked no different from the eagle bat formed by the gathering moth beast. Chapter 43-36. Fellow Taoists, hurry up and leave. Shui Mingzi's heart trembled when he saw such a huge flying eagle appear. Even though the flying eagle hadn't attacked yet, he immediately transmitted his voice without hesitation. However, Ao Zhantian and the other nascent soul cultivators didn't react to Shui Mingzi's words at all. However, Ao Zhantian and the other nascent soul cultivators all stopped in their tracks and circulated their magic power. Lights of different colors shone from their bodies, and they were clearly prepared to face the incoming attack. Hurry up and leave. At this point, Shui Mingzi could no longer maintain his calm. He couldn't even care less about his status as a 5th grade origin energy great grandmaster. Ao Zhantian's eyes narrowed slightly when he heard Shui Mingzi's warning. He replied coldly, fellow Taoist Shui, it's just a small star demon. Why are you making such a big fuss over nothing? Since we can no longer hide our tracks, why don't we give it a shot? Shui Mingzi was a little embarrassed and angry. He understood Ao Zhantian's personality quite well. He had already made it clear when he snuck into the Thousand Beasts sacred realm that he shouldn't flaunt his superiority and shouldn't take his status as a 5th-grade Origin Energy Great Grandmaster too seriously. The Thousand Beasts sacred realm was a sacred realm for the demonic beasts. It was a realm of death for the human race. However, Ao Zhantian was still as arrogant as ever. He completely ignored Shui Mingzi's warning. Ao Zhantian didn't even put him in his eyes. Shui Mingzi's eyes flashed with a hint of ferocity. His gaze swept past Ao Zhantian and the group of nascent soul cultivators to look in the direction of the gathering moth's beasts. After the gathering moth's beasts were destroyed by Ao Zhantian's dragon blood dharma body, they couldn't regroup for the time being. This was an excellent place to escape. If Shui Mingzi was determined to escape, he should have a chance. However, when he looked at the chance of survival that was within his grasp, he clenched his teeth and suppressed his anger. He swallowed his pride and said, "Fellow Taoist Ao, it's not that I'm trying to suppress the demon clan's arrogance, nor is it that I'm trying to suppress the morale of the human clan. This is the Thousand Beasts sacred realm, not the Western Paradise or the hidden immortal continent. The humans of the demonic beasts are worse than dogs. What's the use of saying so much?" Without waiting for Shui Mingzi to finish his sentence, Ao Zhantian opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of true qi. A dark golden scythe flew out of his mouth. As soon as the scythe landed in the air, a bone-chilling cold light shone from it. Even the stars nearby were attracted to it. Oh! Shui Mingzi was shocked. His pupils shrank slightly, and an imperceptible smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He then cried out, "So that's how it is. Fellow Taoist Ao, it looks like you've gained quite a lot from your training on Dragon Island. You must have relied on this dragon artifact to reach the out-of-body realm, right?" He he. A smug smile appeared on Ao Zhantian's face as he replied, "I'm not as lucky as fellow Taoist Water to be able to reach the out-of-body stage as soon as I arrive in the Thousand Demon sacred realm. I only managed to get a sliver of a chance when I was on the Dragon Island." "Alright." Shui Mingzi didn't care about the arrogance in Ao Zhantian's voice. He waved his hand and took out his horsetail whisk. "Since that's the case, let's join forces and fight this demon from the Thousand Demons sacred realm." As he spoke, Shui Mingzi turned to Xian Ping, Su Tingzi, and the others. "You don't have to stay here for long. Hurry up and find a suitable direction to break out of this encirclement." As he spoke, the moth-gathering beasts had already gathered again. More blood mist began to condense. At the same time, thousands of eagles and bats swarmed over from all directions, trying to surround the human cultivators. Xian Ping and the other nascent soul cultivators felt the same way as Ao Zhantian. They were all extremely sullen. Now that they heard Shui Mingzi's instructions, they all activated their magic treasures and charged in different directions. Wherever the light went, not only was the night sky illuminated, even the stench of blood was washed away. Whoa! The human cultivators moved, and the moth-gathering beasts also began to attack. At a low altitude, a blood mist that was several times larger than before began to boil. It chased after Su Tingzi and the others like a bloody sea. This blood mist was very strange. It appeared out of thin air and rose high into the sky. It chased after Su Tingzi and the others closely. Its speed wasn't any slower than the flying speed of these nascent soul cultivators. It was as if these nascent soul cultivators had a suction force that could surpass the distance between them. Hiss! Su Tingzi was the first to notice this strange phenomenon. He couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He hurriedly sensed the bloodline in his body. Sure enough, although the bloodline in his body wasn't gushing out, there was still a strange vibration that was faintly discernible. Following this vibration, the moth-gathering beast's blood mist also rapidly chased after them. Holy shit! Su Tingzi immediately understood. He almost groaned. I understand now. The moth-gathering beasts are moths that fly into the fire. This fire is the bloodline of the human race. Fire can kill moths, but if there are too many moths, the one that will be killed is the fire. Fellow Taoists, these moth-gathering beasts are too strange. We don't need to hold back. Su Tingzi looked around. The nascent soul cultivators closest to him seemed to have also noticed this. He quickly sent a voice transmission. Fortunately, they were already far away from the moth-gathering beasts. Su Tingzi's voice transmission could be heard by the other cultivators. Pa Hong also anxiously said, Fellow Taoist Su Tingzi, there's no need to say any more. Let's use our spells and escape as far as possible. As he spoke, the blood mist had already arrived. Some moth-gathering beasts had hidden in the blood mist. These moth-gathering beasts were clearly much more powerful than the ones from before. They activated the blood mist and formed hundreds of strange tentacles that grabbed at Su Tingzi and the others. Damn it! When the tentacles appeared, the blood in Su Tingzi and the others' bodies immediately showed signs of boiling. Su Tingzi cursed angrily and raised his hand to slap. Wang! An earthy yellow pillar of light shot out from the top of his head and condensed into a nascent soul hand that slapped at the tentacles. Su Tingzi activated his spells. Xin Ping and the others didn't dare to be careless and used their nascent soul hands. Wherever the nascent soul hands landed, the space within 100 feet was sealed. The speed of the blood tentacles also decreased. Boom! Boom! Dozens of explosions rang out as the nascent soul's hand collided with the blood-colored tentacle. Strangely enough, even though the blood-colored tentacle was slowed down and a large part of it was crushed by the nascent soul's hand, the remaining blood mist still managed to break through the nascent soul's restraint and grabbed at Su Tingzi and the others. What surprised Su Tingzi the most was that the remaining blood tentacles were even more powerful. Su Tingzi could already feel his blood seeping out of his body. No wonder Senior Shui Mingzi repeatedly warned me. Su Tingzi felt a hint of regret. The Thousand Demons Sacred Realm is not a place where human cultivators can come. Pooh. Su Tingzi opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood essence. The blood essence should have landed on the magic treasure, but due to the blood mist's attraction, a small portion of the blood essence floated in the air. Wang. After the small drumstick received the blood essence, it immediately emitted an intense earthy yellow light. The blood within the earthy yellow was also very eye-catching. Quick! Su Tingzi formed a hand seal and chanted a mantra. A 3-inch nascent soul wearing spirit armor appeared above his head. The moment the nascent soul appeared, it rubbed its small hands. A small drumstick flew out of its hands and turned into a bolt of lightning that landed on the small drumstick. Wang! The small drumstick let out a rumbling sound again and expanded to several feet in size, protecting Su Tingzi and his nascent soul. Kill! The nascent soul opened its mouth and let out a soft roar. A yellow crystal light landed on the drumstick, and the nascent soul waved its two small hands in the air. Woo! The drumstick that was several feet in size swept through the air and let out a deafening rumble. Under the drumstick, an area of several kilometers was swept clean by the earthy yellow light. Su Tingzi felt his body relax, as if the large hand that had attracted him had suddenly disappeared. Su Tingzi was overjoyed and turned into a rainbow as he charged toward the end of the light. Since Su Tingzi could use a divine ability to escape from the gathering moth beast's attack, Xin Ping and the other nascent soul cultivators could naturally do the same. Xin Ping's natal magic treasure was a 3-colored fan. At this moment, the nascent soul fanned the magic treasure, and the 3-colored light turned into 3 pillars of light that barely broke through the blood mist and carried Xin Ping's body away. Just like Su Tingzi, Xin Ping was in a good mood. His nascent soul couldn't help but sneak a glance in another direction. At this moment, Shui Mingzi and Ao Zhantian were already fighting with the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord in the distance. There were more than 100 eagle bats surrounding them, and the other eagle bats couldn't catch up to them in time. Su Tingzi and the other cultivators were fleeing in a different direction from Xian Ping. The blood mist below them had already thinned. Even if the blood mist condensed again, the gathering moth beast definitely wouldn't be able to catch up to them. If nothing unexpected happened, they would be out of danger. Damn it! Xian Ping's nascent soul withdrew his gaze. He circulated his true essence while thinking to himself, after escaping from here, I'll use this as an excuse to leave this place and quickly return to the hidden immortal continent. Although Shui Mingzi's plan is good, my life is more important. However, just as Xian Ping relaxed his mind, the blood mist below everyone's feet changed again. Woo-woo. The blood mist that had been broken through by the crowd suddenly boiled again. At the bottom of the blood mist, a dozen gathering moth beasts that were several times larger than the normal gathering moth beasts flew out of nowhere. These gathering moth beasts landed in the blood mist and opened their mouths to roar. The gathering moth beasts within a few kilometers also let out wails of anguish. Pung pung pung. Just as the wails of anguish faded, several hundred gathering moth beasts exploded, and a thick blood mist surged out again. Unlike before, when the blood mist appeared, the dozen or so gathering moth beasts immediately emitted a blood-red demonic aura. When this demonic aura entered the blood mist, the entire blood mist instantly transformed into a tentacle that was over 1,000 feet long. What made Xian Ping pale with fright was that the dozen or so gathering moth beasts didn't care about the other cultivators that were escaping. They only glanced coldly at him, and the tentacle streaked across the sky, chasing closely after him. Chapter 43-37. Damn it! Xian Ping didn't expect himself to be so unlucky. His nascent soul didn't have time to return to his body. He opened his mouth again and spat out a blood-colored light. The light from the three-colored magic treasures became even brighter and his flying speed suddenly increased by 40%. Unfortunately, Xian Ping had only flown a few kilometers before the blood mist tentacle caught up with him. A powerful suction force fell on Xian Ping's body, preventing him from escaping. Kill! Xian Ping's nascent soul roared and waved his small hand. Shwa! A three-colored light beam turned into a large hand and grabbed at the blood tentacle. Woo! The large hand swept across the sky and collided with the blood tentacle. A slight wind whistled and the nascent soul's hand missed. The blood tentacle was like nothing. Seeing that the nascent soul's hand was useless, Xian Ping's expression changed greatly and he was about to use another ability. So, the blood tentacle that was still far away from Xian Ping suddenly turned into a shadow and instantly caught up to Xian Ping. Xian Ping's nascent soul suddenly felt that his body was incomparably heavy and he almost couldn't fly with his body. What's going on? Xian Ping was shocked. His nascent soul's eyes flashed as he looked at his physical body. He saw that on the arm that had killed the gathering moth beast, a few drops of blood had already turned into the shape of worms and were rapidly moving towards his physical body. Those few drops of blood were as heavy as 1,000 pounds, causing the nascent soul to be unable to breathe. Damn it! Xian Ping couldn't remember how many times he had cursed. He knew in his heart that these gathering moth beasts were not chasing him for no reason. It must be because he had accidentally left a mark when he killed the gathering moth beast. Xian Ping's nascent soul's eyes flashed with anger. Looking at the blood tentacle approaching, a trace of helplessness appeared on his face. Xian Ping's nascent soul should be able to easily escape from the tentacle, but the prerequisite was that he had to abandon his body. But without a body, how could a nascent soul escape from the Thousand Devil Sacred Realm? Xian Ping's nascent soul shouted without hesitation, Shui Mingzi. Come and save me. As for Shui Mingzi, he immediately activated his horsetail whisk and focused on dealing with the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord. Shui Mingzi was well aware that although the gathering moth beasts were troublesome to deal with, they weren't particularly powerful. If nothing unexpected happened, Su Tingzi and the others should be able to escape with ease. However, the gathering moth beasts that he and Ao Zhantian were facing were the most powerful opponents of the night. As expected, just as Shui Mingzi brought out his horsetail whisk, the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord's neck suddenly began to rumble like the beating of a drum. Following which, a fist-sized vortex appeared in the night sky within a radius of several kilometers. These vortexes were filled with pillars of starlight and moonlight, and they all rushed toward Shui Mingzi and Ao Zhantian like a torrential downpour. Not only that, the sound of the drums was actually a real order to attack. A group of eagles and bats flying in the night sky flapped their wings at the same time, and many coughing sounds were continuously produced. A series of chaotic ripples swept up violent winds. Within a radius of several kilometers, apart from the vortexes of various sizes, there was nothing but violent winds that drowned out all sound. What gave Shui Mingzi the most headache was that the violent winds were filled with ripples. These ripples were like thousands of small hammers striking his Naiwan palace. Although he had a secret technique to protect his Naiwan palace, he was unable to withstand such a concentrated attack. Waves of indescribable dizziness gradually appeared in his mind. Die. Shui Mingzi didn't dare to be negligent. The nascent soul true essence in his body was activated, and he brought out the horsetail whisk in his hand. Shwa. Tens of thousands of threads of light streaked through the air and landed in each of the vortexes. Boom boom boom. The threads of light accurately pierced into the center of the vortexes, and the entire vortexes instantly exploded. Streaks of black and white light flashed past, and a faint spatial crack appeared where the vortexes had been destroyed. Many of the violent winds stirred up by the eagles and bats were swallowed up by these spatial cracks. However, these spatial cracks disappeared in a flash, and didn't have much of an impact on the battle. Hee hee. Ao Zhantian chuckled at this moment, and the magic treasure that had remained motionless all this time suddenly moved. The dark golden light flashed and split the space around it. Swish, swish, swish. Wherever the light landed, it turned into countless dark golden phantoms like a stream flowing through a stream. Wherever the shadows passed, all the ripples were sliced apart, and the violent winds that had been wreaking havoc a moment ago suddenly came to a halt. See. Shui Mingzi couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air when he saw how powerful Ao Zhantian's magic treasure was. He thought to himself, as expected of the Dragon Island, there are countless rare treasures. Back then, Ao Zhantian was only a nascent soul cultivator of the 4th level of essence power. To think that he would be able to obtain such a powerful dragon weapon. This dragon weapon seems to be as powerful as my Dao sect's spiritual magic treasure. Hee hee. The Eagle Bat Mountain Lord wasn't surprised when he saw the ripples being destroyed by Ao Zhantian and Shui Mingzi. Instead, he smiled faintly, and his wings suddenly began to flap again. A series of thunderous booms that were even more concentrated than the beating of the drums rang out once again, and layers of explosive ripples surged toward Shui Mingzi and Ao Zhantian. Shui Mingzi's expression changed when he saw the explosive ripples surging towards him. However, Ao Zhantian actually chuckled like the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord. He rubbed his hands together and shouted, "Combine." As Ao Zhantian's magic power spread out, the countless dark golden shadows suddenly disappeared, and a scythe magic treasure that was several zhang long strangely appeared near the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord's shadow. Then, it slashed towards the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord with lightning speed. GG. The Eagle Bat Mountain Lord was shocked and instinctively cried out twice. His body flashed, and he wanted to turn into a shadow and escape from the magic treasure. However, Ao Zhantian's spiritual magic treasure was simply too powerful. Just as the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord's body turned into a shadow, the scythe had already struck the Eagle-Bat Mountain Lord's wings. Pang! The Eagle-Bat Mountain Lord's wings seemed to have exploded, and feathers of various colors scattered in all directions. Amidst the scattering of feathers, the Eagle-Bat Mountain Lord's body turned into a shattered star. In fact, the power of the scythe did not seem to be depleted at all. After it pierced through the Eagle-Bat Mountain Lord's body, it emitted a sharp light that was several hundred zhang long. This sharp light was even sharper than a flying sword. It streaked across the night sky and instantly killed several eagle bats that were unable to dodge in time. These eagle bats could only let out a miserable cry, and their feathers scattered as blood splattered everywhere. Ha! Ao Zhantian laughed loudly and shouted, "You're only SOSO, fellow Daoist, quickly dodge." Seeing the Eagle-Bat Mountain Lord turn into a shattered star and several eagle bats were killed, Shui Mingzi was not happy. Instead, he was shocked, and his expression was somewhat indescribable. He raised his hand and pointed at the horsetail whisk. Just as he was about to activate the magic treasure, for some unknown reason, the magic power in his hand did not activate. Instead, Shui Mingzi let out a cry of shock. When Ao Zhantian heard Shui Mingzi's warning, his heart trembled. Without any hesitation, he activated the magic power in his body, and his entire body teleported into the distance. However, it was a pity that just as his figure began to fade, 100 zhang in front of him, a gush of shattered fireflies gushed out like a fountain. As these shattered fireflies flowed, the moonlight pillar crashed down at the same time. The Eagle-Bat Mountain Master's perfect figure strangely appeared amidst the shattered fireflies. The moment the Eagle-Bat Mountain Lord's body appeared, his originally lifeless grayish-white eyes suddenly flashed with a resplendent glow. Two cold rays of light shot out from the Eagle-Bat Mountain Lord's eyes and landed on Ao Zhantian's illusory body. Pa 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 pa. The sound of glass shattering rang out, and the space around Ao Zhantian's body began to distort. Ao Zhantian's body was forcefully squeezed out of the void. Not only that, when the Eagle-Bat Mountain Lord saw Ao Zhantian's body appear, he opened his mouth. Boom boom boom. Thunderous roars rang out from his mouth and nose, and thousands of fist-sized whirlpools instantly surrounded Ao Zhantian. Damn it! Ao Zhantian's embarrassment turned into anger. With a wave of his arms, a blood shadow appeared, and the dragon blood Dharma body charged out of his body. The blood-red dragon roared, and its huge dragon tail swept through the air. Woo woo woo. A total of 70% of the whirlpools were destroyed by Ao Zhantian before they could even display their might. Good. Shui Mingzi clapped his hands and said, "Fellow Daoist Ao, you're quite impressive. Let this old man help you." As he spoke, Shui Mingzi raised his hand and slapped the top of his head. His nascent soul floated out from the top of his head. The nascent soul also held an inch-long silvery white horsetail whisk in its hand. However, the tail of the horsetail whisk flickered and emitted a two-colored brilliance. Furthermore, this brilliance contained starlight. When the nascent soul waved the horsetail whisk, the starlight instantly shone brightly. Shwa. As Shui Mingzi's nascent soul waved the horsetail whisk, boundless heaven-earth yuan qi surged. Furthermore, the pillars of starlight around the Eagle-Bat Mountain Lord also split apart and scattered on the horsetail whisk. Tens of millions of light strands instantly covered the space within 1,000 zhang. With a series of screeching sounds, a small portion of these light strands pierced through the void, while the majority of them emitted a cold aura as they pounced towards the Eagle-Bat Mountain Lord. Seeing Shui Mingzi using his sacred art, the Eagle-Bat Mountain Lord suddenly lifted its head and opened its sharp, protruding beastly mouth. Woo woo. A scarlet-red pillar of light shot out from the mouth of the Eagle-Bat Mountain Lord like a flood. This pillar of light wasn't aimed at Shui Mingzi or Ao Zhantian. As this pillar of light descended into the night sky, the starlight around the Eagle-Bat Mountain Lord's body flickered slightly and floated out. Then, a small portion of the pillar of light shot towards the starlight. Wang wang. A strange sound rang out within 1,000 zhang of the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord. Amidst the sound, the space around the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord started to distort. Within the starlight, the light strands that Shui Mingzi had used previously were forced to appear. At this moment, the light strands were already distorted by the spatial pressure and were unable to pose much of a threat to the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord. Not only that, when the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord shot out a large portion of the pillar of light into the night sky, the entire night sky was also distorted. Even the thousands of eagle bats that were surrounding the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord were affected by the pillar of light. At the same time, they let out a series of cough-cough sounds. The space within a few dozen li was once again enveloped by the ripples as a series of formless waves rose up. Chapter 43-38. Damn it! At this moment, Ao Zhantian's Ni1 palace was shaking violently. Not only could he see it with his naked eyes, but he could also feel the world spinning around him. Ao Zhantian's dragon blood dharma body trembled slightly as if it couldn't maintain its balance. Ao Zhantian cursed angrily as his dragon blood dharma body roared toward the sky. He wanted to borrow the power of the dragon blood dharma body to break through the encirclement of the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord and his subordinates. Roar! A dragon's roar soared into the sky. Unfortunately, it only traveled 1,000 feet before it was shattered by countless coughs. Even Ao Zhantian's dragon blood dharma body showed signs of collapsing. Not good. Ao Zhantian's heart jolted upon hearing this, and he seemed to have come to a sudden realization. The eagle bat is the nemesis of the gathering moth beasts, and the gathering moth beasts possess the power of bloodlines. Isn't my dragon blood dharma body also manifested from my bloodline? How was it possible for me to destroy the energy waves of the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord? Could it be that the demon race also knows how to plan? Wang. Just as Ao Zhantian was puzzled, the entire night sky trembled again. Countless pillars of starlight descended and grabbed onto Ao Zhantian's dragon blood dharma body like a giant palm. Ao Zhantian's expression froze, and he hurriedly tried to withdraw his dragon blood dharma body back into his body. Unfortunately, how could he still control the situation at this point? A huge force pressed down on his head like a boulder, and he couldn't activate his dragon blood dharma body no matter what. Fuck. Ao Zhantian didn't dare to be careless. He rubbed his hands together, and streaks of light as thin as hair fell into the sky. The space in front of him trembled as countless origin chi of heaven and earth broke through the pillars of starlight. Whoosh! As Ao Zhantian made a few hand seals, the scythe rushed into the sky and sliced through most of the pillars of starlight. The dragon blood dharma body finally moved again, and it fell toward Ao Zhantian's body. Fellow Taoist Ao, let me help you. Seeing that Ao Zhantian was in trouble again, Shui Mingzi's body swayed, and he waved the horsetail whisk in his hand again. At this moment, Xian Ping's cry for help sounded strangely. Shui Mingzi, come save me. Shui Mingzi was shocked. He didn't care about Xian Ping's disrespect and naturally released his divine sense. Buzz buzz. When his divine sense landed in the night sky, a feeling of dizziness immediately entered Shui Mingzi's mind. Shui Mingzi was shocked. He quickly withdrew his divine sense and looked up. Seeing that Xian Ping was in danger, Shui Mingzi was extremely shocked. He glanced at Ao Zhantian and the Eagle Bat Mountain Chieftain in disbelief, seemingly hesitating. Fellow Taoist Water, hurry and save Xian Ping. Ao Zhantian naturally heard Xian Ping's cry for help. He hurriedly shouted, this old man still has some strength left, but... Shui Mingzi seemed to have misgivings about something. However, it only lasted for a moment before his body flickered. A two-colored light flashed around him, and a faint demonic cloud appeared beneath his feet. Shui Mingzi teleported away, and in the space of a few breaths of time, he appeared 3,000 meters away from Xian Ping. Unfortunately, Shui Mingzi's figure had only just appeared. Before he could wave the horsetail whisk in his hand, the blood vessels on Xian Ping's body had already appeared like thick earthworms. With a loud bang, Xian Ping's body exploded. Damn it! Shui Mingzi was furious. He waved his horsetail whisk, and hundreds of strands of light shot towards the huge moth-gathering beasts. He shouted again, "Fellow Taoist Xian, don't panic. Hurry and come to this old man," who knew that it would have been better if Shui Mingzi hadn't said anything. As soon as Shui Mingzi spoke, a trace of resentment flashed across Xian Ping's nascent soul's eyes. The magic power around his body surged, and with a whoosh, he actually teleported into the distance. "Fellow Taoist Xian." Shui Mingzi was shocked. He hurriedly said, "This is the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. How can a nascent soul like you escape from being devoured by the demons?" As he spoke, Shui Mingzi was about to chase after Xian Ping. However, just as Shui Mingzi's figure moved, a wave of blood energy surged through his body. Not to mention teleporting, even flying was a bit troublesome. Damn it, damn it, damn it! Shui Mingzi was truly enraged. He opened his mouth, and a silvery white pillar of light fell into the strands of light he had shot out. With a boom, the strands of light flew up and instantly killed a huge moth-gathering beast. Shui Mingzi's magic treasure did indeed kill a moth-gathering beast. However, the crimson tentacle wasn't something that Shui Mingzi's magic treasure could defend against. The crimson tentacle changed direction and came crashing down on Shui Mingzi. At this moment, due to Shui Mingzi's departure, Ao Zhantian was facing off against the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord alone. He had just retracted most of his dragon blood avatar into his body when the light around him began to distort and ripple. The remaining avatar was already beginning to crumble, roar. At this critical moment, a loud dragon's roar soared into the sky from afar. Following which, a powerful vital intent appeared out of thin air. This vital intent was very strange. It was like a river, but also like a boulder. As it descended, it caused the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord to tremble violently. Even though it didn't break through, it still caused the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord to hurriedly turn around. Which damned bastard dares to bully a descendant of the dragon tribe? A loud voice sounded from behind the vital intent. It was the language of the Thousand Beast Holy Realm. Good. Ao Zhantian was truly overjoyed. Even though he hadn't seen the newcomer yet, just from the power of the vital intent and the dragon's roar alone, he already knew that the newcomer was definitely a powerful ally. Sure enough, just as the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord spread its wings and soared into the sky, a demonic body that resembled a dragon and a snake descended from the night sky. The snake's tail, which was several dozen feet thick, whistled through the air as it came crashing down like a small mountain. Where the serpent tail landed, the Eagle Bat Mountain Master similarly flapped his wings to receive the attack. Boom! With a loud explosion, the serpent tail was flipped over, and an ugly serpent dragon tumbled in midair, revealing its demonic body. The Eagle Bat Mountain Lord also tumbled through the night sky. Even though it spread its wings, it was still unable to maintain its balance. So, it's a python dragon. Ao Zhantian was filled with anticipation for the appearance of a member of the dragon tribe. When he saw that it was a python dragon, he couldn't help but feel disappointed. However, when he saw that the python dragon's demonic body was so sturdy, there was hope amidst his disappointment. He didn't dare to be careless. While the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord was entangled by the python dragon, he hurriedly retracted his dragon blood dharma body. With a sway of his body, the scythe in his hand slashed out once again. Its target was the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord. Pung, pung, pung. The magic treasure streaked across the sky, and a series of explosive sounds could be heard. At this moment, the space was still enveloped by the fluctuations of the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord. The scythe didn't leave behind a beautiful arc, but traces left behind by the shockwaves. With so many shockwaves blocking the scythe, when the magic treasure landed on the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord's head, it was no longer as sharp as before. The Eagle Bat Mountain Lord sneered coldly. With a flap of its wings, the scythe was sent flying diagonally. It didn't pose any threat to the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord at all. Fellow immortal. At this moment, the python dragon was already twisting its body. Seeing that Ao Gentian's magic treasure was useless, it shouted, "You go and kill those small fries. Leave this bastard to me." All right. Ao Gentian naturally understood the Thousand Beast Sacred Realm's words. With a nod of his head, he moved with all his might. With a flick of his hand, he pounced towards the nearest Eagle Bat Mountain Lord. Ho! The python dragon watched Ao Gentian leave, and a trace of a smile appeared in its eyes. With a loud roar, it opened its mouth and shot out a huge pillar of starlight towards the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord. Boom boom boom. Wherever the pillar of light passed, the shockwaves in the surrounding space were all destroyed. At the same time, the python dragon's tail slammed down again, and a mountain-like force enveloped the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord. Dong dong dong. The Eagle Bat Mountain Lord was greatly alarmed. His mouth and nose emitted a drumming sound, and waves of shockwaves broke through the air in an attempt to block the pillar of light. At the same time, his body also reflected the brilliance of the starlight as he flapped his wings to meet the python dragon's tail. Boom! With a loud bang, the python dragon's tail smashed into the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord's back. Facing the python dragon's sturdy demonic body, the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord was unable to resist at all. His 100-zhang-tall demonic body floated down like an autumn leaf, and his feathers were sent flying in all directions. Huh! The python dragon laughed loudly. You're just a bat. How dare you be so arrogant in front of my dragon tribe? Just as the python dragon was laughing maniacally, the Eagle Bat Mountain Master, who seemed to have no strength to resist, suddenly spread his wings. His entire body transformed into a strange black shadow, and with lightning speed, he fled towards the dark night at a low altitude. Damn it, you still want to escape in front of me? The python dragon was unwilling to let it go. After a moment of shock, demonic clouds flashed around its body, and it chased after the black shadow. It was also at this moment that Shui Mingzi's voice rang out from afar. Fellow immortal, oh? The python dragon's body turned sluggish, and when it turned its head to look, it saw Shui Mingzi's body flashing with two different colors of light. Layers of blood-red light rippled outwards. The horsetail whisk in Shui Mingzi's hand was able to block the numerous gathering moth beasts, but it was unable to block the power of the bloodline within the blood-red mist. What was special was that at a low altitude, there were thousands of gathering moth beasts, whose eyes were flashing with red light, gathering over without fear of death. Fellow immortal, do you have any ideas? Shui Mingzi shouted loudly. If fellow immortal is able to lend us a hand, I will definitely reward you greatly. What does it have to do with me? The python dragon's words almost caused Shui Mingzi to roll his eyes in anger. You're not even a descendant of the dragon tribe. After the python dragon finished speaking, it turned its head again to look in the direction that the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord had fled. In just a few breaths, the Eagle Bat Mountain Lord had already disappeared without a trace. The python dragon's body flew for 1,000 feet, but it seemed to have some misgivings and stopped chasing. Instead, it looked in Ao Gentian's direction and called out cheerfully, Fellow immortal, don't worry, I'll help you. Damn it, isn't it just a python dragon? Do you have to think so highly of yourself? You're ignoring me, but I'm going to pay you back. Seeing how the python dragon was so biased, as if it didn't care about his life at all, Shui Mingzi's nose became crooked from anger. He gritted his teeth and opened his mouth, sending a surge of true yuan into his magic treasure. Thousands of starlight appeared once again, but this time, the starlight didn't attack the gathering moth beasts. Instead, it landed on Shui Mingzi's body. Following which, Shui Mingzi's body flickered, and his body gradually blurred as he charged into the blood-red mist, flying in the direction of the python dragon. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.